They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out, something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here, that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me.
The only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. Institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, and community office for our organizers. That was the building that has come under attack.
You need a breach? What do you need?
Need one.
I don't know.
I'll hold that, money. Thank you.
We will build a movement of white people that says hands off the Uhuru movement.
They see in the African People's Socialist Party a vanguard for the struggle for the liberation of our people. They see that because not just what we do here in the United States, but because we had the temerity to do like Garvey, to do like Malcolm X, and take the struggle of black people around the world.
Uhuru comrades, I want to welcome everybody to today's program. This is a report back from the Frontlines, Cuba and Gaza, and building the anti-colonial free speech movement, the anti-colonial human rights movement. And my name is Mwezi Odom, and I am a member of the African People's Socialist Party, as well as the chairperson of the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition. And that is who is sponsoring and bringing this event to you today. And I want to welcome up my co-MC, comrade, one of the Uhuru Three, the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, Comrade Penny Hess, on the ground in St. Louis. Uhuru, comrade.
Uhuru, Mwezi, it's such an honor to be here, and this is going to be a very powerful program today.
Yes, right on, comrade. Yes, it will. We are really looking forward to this, opportunity to continue to, put out what is happening in the world through the eyes and the lens of the working class, through the eyes of those, who are oppressed and who are struggling for our freedom and our liberation. And today is no different. And we are in such a crucial moment, in our time and in history. And it's just a great honor. So I'm really looking forward to getting this program started. We're going to pull up just some overview slides to welcome everybody on the program and tell from all over, and we want to welcome you as well, comrades. So Uhuru. So again, we want to thank you for being on today. And if you are watching on YouTube or on Facebook, we encourage you to share this, share this widely and have everybody come on. They can register by going to handsoffuhuru.org/reportback and come right into this meeting. So this is brought to you by the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition. The Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition is a anti-colonial, non-sectarian, anti-colonial free speech coalition. And, making the demand to drop the charges, sorry, next slide, to drop the charges on the Uhuru 3 and to defend the right to freedom of speech. As we can see in this time, even just what we say has, very dire, consequences, for the oppressed, because we understand that to fight for freedom alone is illegal under a colonial mode of production. So I want to encourage everybody to, learn more about the coalition by going to handoffuhuru.org/coalition. And one of the main, among, the many struggles that this coalition is taking on, we are committed to the release of Leonard Peltier, and we want to salute our comrades from the Leonard Peltier Ad Hoc Committee, of whom you will be hearing from today. And as we say, not one more year, free Leonard Peltier, an Indigenous man who has been held for over 50 years in this colonial prison, which is the United States, on his own land. And we want to say that Leonard Peltier will be free and that we will not stop until this struggle is won. So check out the coalition, join as an organization, join as an individual. You can go to our website to learn more, read our demands, also read our principles of unity, see what brought us together on July 8th of last year to form this Fightback coalition. And we want you to also be a part of it. We want to salute coalition members and the community in Southern California who held a very profound and warm welcome for the Uhuru 3, a 3-day tour, which brought support and put the demand for dropping the charges and freedom of speech out there in the world in Southern California. And we want to salute all of those comrades who made that happen. We also want to salute the relentless leadership of Chairman Amalia Shatella and Deputy Chair Ona Zanaya Shatella, who are my leadership in the African People's Socialist Party, developing the theory of African internationalism and providing proof of what leadership looks like in the hands of the working class through the projects on the ground that you can see in St. Louis, Missouri, which are transforming an African community and putting power back in the hands of the working class. Chairman Amalia Shatella has fought for over 50 years on the question of colonialism, not racism, because understand that the question of colonialism is a question of power. And this is what all colonized and oppressed peoples are fighting for, is the ability to have control and power over, over our future. It's everything that has been stolen. And so the question of colonialism is key. We want to salute Chairman Amalia Shatella for forwarding this demand out of the ashes of the counterinsurgency in the 1960s. And this is why I found it necessary to wage the Black, struggle against the Black liberation movement on the ground in St. Petersburg, Florida, and in St. Louis, Missouri, with military-style raids on 7 homes and properties of the Uhuru movement. You saw that video, in the opening video. Following that, 4 members of our movement were named as unindicted co-conspirators. This was the original Uhuru 4. Chairman Amalia Shatella, our Director of Media and Communications, Akile Anai, as well as Chair Penny Hess of the African People's Solidarity Committee, and Chair Jesse Neville, who is the chair. This fight back, the Uhuru 3, what we are taking out into the world is a fight back to make the demand to drop the charges against the Uhuru 3 and to say, white people say no to the FBI's war against Black liberation. And as we say, put the colonial state on trial. The case of the Uhuru 3, is a significant case, and we want to salute our legal team and, all those who have come together, since day one to really push back these attacks, but to understand that this case will test the limits of the United States government's ability to suppress political speech. This is a case that threatens, to establish the precedents with 3 are convicted, it will open the gates for the U.S. government to charge anyone who has speech that they simply just don't like by alleging that this speech is done at the behest of some foreign government because it makes the U.S. government look bad. So this case and the fight back against the Uhuru 3 is a worldwide struggle. We are committed to taking this struggle out across the world. As you can see, on the next slide, we are building this anti-colonial free speech movement, taking this out across the world, winning solidarity. And what we are telling people on is right now, forward to the trial. Go to handsoffuhuru.org/trial. Come to Tampa on September September 3rd, put the state on trial, pack the courthouse. And so you can find out more information by going to handsoffuhuru.org/trial and immediately filling out the form saying that you will be there on September 3rd for the trial. And we are calling on people to come before the trial on August 31st for a pre-trial march and rally on the ground in St. Petersburg, Florida. We're going to meet up at the Uhuru House and we're going to march. And so you can sign up for the march at handsoffuhuru.org/march to let us know that you're coming. So we'll say more about that in this, later on in the program, but we invite you to continue to follow us on our social media platforms to get more information. And we want to appreciate everybody for your donations and all of your contributions to this fight back, because of you in phase one, we raised $277,500 towards the legal fund for the Hands Off Uhuru. This was, lawyers and, being able to take the ability to take this case out in the world. Because of you, we were able to do that. And today we are working towards our phase two goal, which is to raise $100,000 towards trial so we can have expert witnesses, everything that we're going to need in that courtroom to put the state on trial. And we have a goal today of raising $1,000. So I want to appreciate everybody for going to handsoffuhuru.org/donate to get in, to help us get kickstarted. And so who you'll be hearing from on today's program is from the Leonard Peltier Committee, Attorney Jennifer Jones, who will be sending a video, and another member of the committee, Comrade Don Lawson, as well. We want to appreciate and salute Nancy Mansour, the Executive Director of Eyewitness Palestine, who you'll be hearing from as well. Cesar Sanchez from the National Network on Cuba and the Cuba Seed New York, New Jersey Coalition. Welcome, comrade. As well as a report from the U.S. Hands Off Cuba Committee, which led a delegation in Cuba in May of this year, which included members such as Musa Bassi from Black Men Build Los Angeles, who you'll be hearing from, as well as Cynthia Aguirre from the Western Service Workers Association, as well as Nayusha Lin from the International League of People's Struggles, and Sarah Amusbahi, who is a student of at Elam, working with under the leadership of IFCO Pastors for Peace, who we'll be hearing from as well today. And we also want to salute and appreciate Compa Ron Gochez, who will be joining us on today as well. So thank you so much, comrades. So this is our program for today. And I'm going to bring back up Comrade Penny Hess, because we're going to just give a quick overview about why Cuba, why Gaza, and why this struggle must continue. So Uhuru, comrade.
Uhuru, thank you so much, Chairman Wazy. And I just want to say it's very much of an honor to be here. Again, my name is Penny Hess, and I am the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, the organization of white people under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, with the work to build solidarity with the African Liberation Movement and to raise reparations to African people. So that is our work. And we are very happy to be here today. So yes, we're excited about this program today. And we just wanted to say a little bit about the, there's so much to say about the Cuban Revolution and Gaza and the relationship of African people to both of these incredible struggles all the way back. This is not new. But we just have to make this very short today. So the Cuban Revolution declared victory on January 1st, 1959. And that is, of course, Fidel Castro in the center of that picture there. Next slide. And the revolution began on July 26th. In the immediate way it began, because it certainly traces back in Cuba's history. But on July 26, 1953, the people revolutionary attack on the Moncada barracks with only 160 guerrillas. That was the opening salvo of that Cuban Revolution. And Fidel Castro was arrested for this attack. In court, he made his famous statement, "History will absolve me." He said, "Condemn me, it does not matter. History will absolve me." And he was he represented himself in court. He gave that statement for 2 hours. And I urge people to actually read the statement. It's very powerful and shows that the struggle of the oppressed and colonized people will win. And Fidel published a manifesto calling for these demands, which was the basis for workers' power in Cuba. It included reformation of land rights, the right of industrial workers to a 30% share of company profits, the right of sugar workers to receive 55% of company profits, and the confiscation of holdings of those found guilty of fraud under previous administrative powers, under US-backed neocolonialism. Next slide. The Cuban Revolution overturned the brutal US-backed Batista government. Next slide. The revolution was won by heroic freedom fighters, including Che Guevara, and there were many, many more. Next slide. Fidel Castro, Raul Castro, and Che met in Mexico prior to the onslaught of the Cuban Revolution and sailed a small boat called the Granma, filled with 80 fighters back to Cuba. And just to say that that boat was not prepared to hold 80 fighters, so it was a perilous journey, but they did make it. Next slide. On January 2nd, 1959, the people liberated Havana, the capital of Cuba. Next slide. Che Guevara called for 2, 3, many Vietnams, saluting the colonized peoples of the world and illustrating what the chairman calls the colonial mode of production, that it is the anti-colonial struggles that are the main force in the world today against this brutal social system. Next slide. Che visited Gaza in 1959 at the invitation of Egypt's Nasser. And you can see Che third from the left, I guess, or the right, I guess, on my side. There in this picture in Gaza in 1959, very historic photograph. Next slide. Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party have always stood with Cuba and Palestine. And the chairman would say, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and Gaza, Gaza, hold the line, victory to Palestine. And the chairman also says, from sea to shining sea, African people and indigenous people will be free. Next slide. Today, Cuba is strong and committed to socialism despite US sanctions and attacks. And according to Cuba's own mission, we believe that human rights are intrinsic to humanity, and the fundamental role of the state is to guarantee these rights. Next slide. Free, free Palestine. Uhuru. The Palestinian masses have always resisted. This is pictures of the first and second Intifada. Next slide. Yes, go ahead, Chairman Weezy.
Uhuru, sorry, I think there might be a little lag on your end as well. So I think I hope I didn't interrupt you. Okay, I see where we are now. Great. Okay, if we can just go back one slide. And yes, this is why we say, hands off Cuba. This is why we say free, free Palestine, because we understand that, Palestinian masses have always resisted. We can go back to the first and second intifadas, where they, fiercely fought, as known as this the popular uprising. And so this attack, right, against the colonial straight powers that the world witnessed, once again on October 7th, is another example of the counter, of the insurgency of the people. And we want to
I think it's on our end.
I think it, oops.
Because
Your Moisey is frozen for me.
Uhuru. Yes, Chairman Weezy.
We suddenly lost Penny's audio.
Oh, no.
No, now I hear you again.
Okay. All right. Next slide, please. Sorry about these problems. Next slide. Today, the people reclaim their revolution. Next slide. The Palestinians. struggle. It's a struggle against colonialism. Uhuru, Chairman Wasey, welcome back.
Okay. All right, I switched to a different Wi-Fi. Is this better?
It seems to be so far.
Okay, so far. Thank you, comrade. Okay, thank you so much for taking this on, Penny. Yeah, so as we understand, the Palestinian struggle is a struggle against colonialism. And what is colonialism? Colonialism is the total domination of a whole people by a hostile and foreign state power for the economic benefit of the oppressor nation. And, you know, we understand that colonialism is a mode of production. As we can see, European wealth built on stolen African, indigenous, and colonized human beings, you know, our labor, our land, and our resources, all of that stolen in a process that established the, you know, this existing, you know, global world economy, this political and social, this political and economic configuration that we are all locked into. And we understand that colonialism and as thus capitalism was born parasitic, as a parasitic world economy born from the assault on Africa, enslavement and colonization of African people, and the genocide against the indigenous people of the so-called Americas and the theft of their land. And so we can look at Israel as a settler colonial state, as an instrument of colonialism, as an instrument of the state, no different from US, from Canada, Australia, South Africa, and New Zealand. And so the Palestinian and the African, you know, and the global, you know, oppressed, you know, anti-colonial, you know, movement has unity in this struggle against colonialism. Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru movement have always stood in profound anti-colonial unity with the righteous struggle for the national liberation of the Palestinian and Arab people and the destruction of the Israeli settler colonial state. And so, you know, we understand that Gaza is, as we said, you know, as has been said, an open air prison. And so is every African, Mexican, indigenous community in the United States and in Canada as well. And we understand that, you know, because they face the same colonial conditions. And so we can look at, you know, things that are very clear. Palestinians face police terror, whether they are, you know, here in the United States or elsewhere. Africans in the US and Canada face police terror and murder. And as we know, just a matter of weeks, you know, before, in August 2022, the Israeli police raided 6 offices of Palestinian organizations in the West Bank. You know, this security camera footage of the Israeli raids, you know, was strikingly, you know, similar to the footage of the FBI raids of the Uhuru movement, which happened just weeks prior on July 29th, this violent military style raid, you know, which included the home of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and Deputy Chair Onezene Yeshitela. So as we know, comrades, the world is changing and the people are rising up. And so we say, join the anti-colonial fight back struggle, join the anti-colonial free speech movement, join the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition. Uhuru. Uhuru. So I just want to appreciate you, comrade, for taking us through that. And we're going to move our agenda and bring up one of our first speakers. And then I'll be moving some things around as we have some shifting schedules. So, but first up, we have Comrade Nancy. Very excited to have you on.
Uhuru, just really want to warmly welcome Nancy Mansour, the director of Eyewitness Palestine, co-founder of Existence is Resistance, yes, which is a powerful name, and who recently returned from a trip from Gaza. We appreciate you so much and your longstanding membership to Hands Off Uhuru. So welcome, Comrade Nancy Mansour. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Uhuru, peace. Thank you for having me. Yes, you know, thank you for always giving us a space to speak as well. I appreciate it. You know, I did really want to talk about the trip to Gaza. It's my second time there. I did go in 2009 after the destruction of what they called Operation Cast Lead. Obviously nothing on the scale of what we've seen in the past and ongoing 7.5, 8 months. But I did go in March and I took a team of 10 doctors and you have to excuse me, I'm gonna give a disclaimer. I get a little bit emotional talking about it. It's not weakness, it's just sadness at seeing your people being slaughtered and then not being able to stop it. So I spent 2 weeks there, and we had 10 doctors based out of different hospitals in Rafah. We essentially traveled through Egypt, through the Sinai, and we got in through Rafah while it was still open. And we stayed in East Rafah, an area called Jnina, which was hit really bad, actually. I've been through a lot, many clashes and all types of stuff in the West Bank, but I've never actually been there under bombing. And then, not just bombing, but the constant drones 24/7. It's a psychological warfare. It's just a constant loud buzzing all over, outside, inside. And, you know, the best way I can describe it is saying that it's the happiest and saddest place on earth that I've ever been to. Um, there, I could talk about this forever. There's so many things to highlight, but I think the most important are one, that what we're seeing through social media, through like the real news and through webinars like this are literally maybe 2 to 5% of what's really happening on the ground. It You can't translate smells. You can't translate, the it's not just, people are being slaughtered. It's the destruction of the homes. It's the destruction of the infrastructure, of the economical situation. One thing that people always said when I took them to Palestine, I've been taking people for 17 years. One thing that people would always say during our reportbacks would be that I don't ever see any homeless people. Like, there's no homeless people in Palestine. And there really isn't. Like, we don't have that. We don't have nursing homes, and we don't have homeless people because, one thing, whether you can stand them or not, we take care of our families till, the last breath. There's no, and we're very much about community. And one of the first things that struck me in Gaza is that it was just tents on tent, like everybody was homeless. Essentially Rafah is a city of about 130,000, 200,000 people. And we were there and there was 1.8 million people, because they kept shifting people as we watched, telling them, go here, it's safe in Khan Yunis, go south to Rafah, it's safe. And obviously they bombed everywhere. And as we know right now, Rafah is completely emptied out. So even the families that we stayed with in the same building, we stayed in a building with 4 apartments, and the 3 families in those apartments are all in tents, and they've moved twice since March, because obviously they were bombing the tents in Rafah. And it's like, I never feel like the words are enough. Like, I tell you that people are intense, but I don't think people really realize, like, this is like, just imagine that one day you lose your home, you lose every single thing you ever owned. Maybe a few family members that are stuck under the rubble of your house. I can't tell you how many people I met whose children were still under the rubble of their home, half an hour away. And they're just living in the streets. And then you still have people here trying to justify these genocidal maniacs. Like, Gaza is all children. The one thing that I saw the most of, moving aside the destruction, and the one thing that I saw the most of was children. Everywhere I went was children. And that was the happiness part of it, because they were just so full of life and love. Like, I don't, Palestinians, we say karama, like, it's hospitality, like the love that the giving that Palestinians have. It's a huge thing. We're super, like, if you have Palestinian friends or you've been in a Palestinian home, you know that they'll give you everything they have. The families that were staying in the same building as us kept bringing us food. And I kept saying to them, like, bro, like, we're here to, like, give and, like, help however we can. And they're like, that's exactly why, we're you're our guests. Essentially, their bottom line was, you are still our guests. You're in our country. Like, you're here to help our people. And so we do whatever we can. Like, literally, if they have a grain of rice, they'll give you half of that grain of rice. And sorry. Anyway, you know, there is horror stories I could tell you about of like the hospitals that we worked in, like the Emirati, which was the last maternity hospital with a NICU department in it in Rafah. You know, we saw situations, or our doctors as well that were working in those departments. We would go every day to a different hospital to check in on the doctors and just, you know, look at the hospitals and meet people. And we saw situations where the doctors, the Palestinian doctors, who should get all the recognition, to be honest, going for 2 weeks is for us by choice, right? Like, we go by choice, and what is 2 weeks? Like, we helped a little bit, but on what scale is that compared to Palestinian doctors that have been doing this their whole life? Because this is all that has been happening there, just death and destruction. And these doctors are working with no salaries. There is no infrastructure. There's no money flowing. There's no wages being paid. There's no paychecks and ADP and whatever you want to call it. There's no money going into their bank accounts. And yet they work a 2-hour shift, you know, I saw doctors nurses walking around just crying because they just lost their families like 2 days prior, and they're just walking around working but crying. And I saw doctors that had to make a decision. That the head of the NICU, Mohammed Salama, in Emirati, he had to make a decision of, there was a family that had twins and a family that had one baby, and they only had space in the incubator for 2 babies. And so he had to choose which 2 babies to keep alive. And in order for each family to have 1 baby, he decided that they would have to let one of the twins die so that each family could get 1 child at least. And those are the kind of decisions and conditions that, you know, Palestinian doctors are working under. And again, I mean, we've seen there's only a couple of functioning hospitals, and functioning at the very bare minimal. You know, it's just so much to explain, and it's hard for people to really envision what the situation is on the ground. It's beyond anything you could ever imagine. Like, whatever you think it is, and I think I've been saying this for years to people, preparing them before they go to Palestine, is whatever you think is happening on the ground there, you have to prepare yourself, because it's 1,000 times worse. And that's not just words, like, that's the reality. It's 1,000 times worse. It's like beyond anything you can ever imagine. And, you know, what I can say is, through all of the pain and the horrors that we witnessed, what I did witness is that Palestinians have not lost the heart that they have, the love that they have. And Israel will never, in a million years, if they're still around at that point, will ever defeat that. And Palestinians really do teach life, and they really do motivate me to want to go harder, because they don't fear anything but God. And when your heart is clean, you know what I'm saying? When you know you're fighting for something righteous, when you know you're in the right, there's no beating that. You can't beat somebody into not being right. Like, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing Israel finding it so difficult to retreat, because they just can't deal with the fact that they've really this time, I believe, showed the world who they are. I know for the most of us, we already knew, and we've been screaming this for probably as long as many of us have been alive or been aware of what's happening there. But we are seeing them. We're seeing the end of the destruction of Israel themselves. It's a self-destruction. They're showing you who they are, and this is not sustainable, and it's unacceptable. And I cannot wait to celebrate the end of this genocidal state. And one thing that I took away from Gaza is that they are counting on our voices. They are counting on us to keep going. And so even me getting emotional is a privilege. They don't have the privilege of burying and mourning their losses. And so we have to keep going. We have to keep speaking up, because we are literally the voice of the voiceless. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Uhuru. Gaza, Gaza, hold the line. Victory to Palestine. Uhuru. Wow. Yeah, go ahead, Penny. I just also wanted to just really appreciate Comrade Nancy for your statement. And you know, in particular, I mean, of all that you said and just the importance of Eyewitness Palestine to be able to be there on the ground and to allow others to be able to witness what is happening, you know, to a people who are in many ways, as you said, you know, some, you know, you know, strongest in this struggle, but are experiencing just unimaginable terror. And I mean, just some of the examples that you gave around even having to make decisions around life, decisions that if this was in our own hands, there would be no question about who lives or who dies. And I just really want to, you know, I'm just grateful that you were able to come on and able to take the time to share and to talk about what is happening. And also to, you know, like you said, we can't wait to celebrate. As we say, we are winning, we will win. And yes, existence is resistance, and we will keep this, you know, struggle alive. And want to really appreciate your, you know, your solidarity. And we are with you. The African People's Socialist Party is with you. This Fight Back Coalition and the world, you know, the people of the world are watching, and we will not let those, you know, voices be silent. So Uhuru, comrade, and I know you may have to leave at some point, but we're glad that you're able to stay on just for this point. And I do see on the ground in St. Louis, we have Chairman and next to Chairwoman Penny. So I'll turn it over to the comrades on the ground. Uhuru.
Uhuru, just really want to thank Nancy Mansour. That was so powerful and, you know, just really moving, and really appreciate you so much and the struggle of the Palestinian people. And I'm very excited that Chairman Omali Yeshitela has joined us here in St. Louis. And Chairman, would you like to say a few words before we move on our program?
Before we move on the program,
Yes.
where are we next on the program?
Next is going to be some of the comrades that went to the Cuba trip.
Yeah, I'd like to just make a couple of observations, if I may. First, what I want to do is appreciate this particular meeting. I think is extremely important. I think the discussion revolving around the situation with and in Cuba, the situation with and in Palestine. The fact is that one of the reasons the United States government is intent on imprisoning me in particular as the leader of the African People's Socialist Party and the African Socialist International, as the leader of the Uhuru movement that was brought into existence as a part of the process of the fight against colonialism. One of the reasons that I have come under attack, our party and movement have come under attack, is the fact that we recognize that, and have recognized for a very long time, that the primary issue and struggle we're involved in is colonialism. And that our enemies have attacked our movements, our struggles to try to make us disappear, to make our voices disappear, to make the contradictions that we are confronted with as something that's purely abstractions, that make us fight for liberal solutions, to turn us into people who, through terror, through murder, assassinations, and things like that, to turn our movements and our people into folk who are just trying to find a way to live within the imperial construct. The reason, the question of from the river to the sea, Palestine must be free is such a horrible thing, is because the notion of a totally liberated Palestine and Palestinian people is abhorrent to our oppressors, just as the notion of a liberated African people, and especially African people who in the bowels of this a foul social system that's experiencing extreme crisis at this moment, is the fact that our presence in this country, in the United States in particular, and our recognition of ourselves as Africans and fighting as Africans as part of an anti-colonial movement, anti-colonial struggle around the world, serves to negate the colonial project itself. The fact is that Africans as Africans in the United States have to be negated. We don't exist. We are some kind of hyphenated personalities. The same thing they're trying to do with Palestinians. they want to be able to say they're Arabs in Palestine, but they don't even want to acknowledge the existence of Palestine. They would make it disappear. Well, we're not going anyplace, and we're part of a single movement, and this is something that I and the African People's Socialist Party have recognized for a very long time. So we know that we're not fighting just about the Cuba question, which, although Cuba is critical, and we're not fighting just about the question of Palestine. That's a critical question, especially at this moment in history. We're fighting against a colonial mode of production. And this colonial mode of production should help us to understand that there's not just a lot of colonialisms, but there's one mode of production that dominates the entire world. And it's on a very shaky foundation now, precisely because of what has happened with Cuba, in Cuba, precisely what is happening in Palestine, and precisely what is happening in St. Louis, Missouri, and St. Petersburg, Florida, where we were attacked inside the United States because the struggle that we're leading is central to the ability of the colonizers, the United States, that preens the world as this beacon of democracy, as the headquarters of all the rights and decency in the world, where the Catholic Church, even, which is the symbol of what is supposed to be morality in the whole colonial world itself, is something that has come into question with the rape of children, where the former president of the United States was elected president of the United States in the first place because what he did was challenge the existing setup, actually calling the elections as something that were paid and purchased for by rich people. And he said he knew it was true because he had done it himself, where he said that the game was rigged, that the elections were rigged, that he came out against the most significant trouble at this moment, a colonial project like the Atlanticist project that put forth the United Nations and NATO and the World Trade Organizations and all of these other entities that has dominated up to now. Even Trump came out challenging those entities and challenging that setup because he is part of a sector of the ruling class that is contesting with other sectors of the ruling class for control of a world that is being troubled precisely because people in Palestine and people in Cuba and people in Nicaragua and people in Venezuela and people all over Africa and African communities here in this country, the people who every time they cross that artificial border participate in reconquering their own lands and territories. This is the contradiction that they are faced with. And I'm really happy to be here with an expression of the Palestinian resistance, the fact that we are not just talking about protesting, we have gone beyond the question of simple protesting, even though we may participate in protests, even though we may initiate protests, but our objective in dealing with these protest movement, calling attention to what is happening to us, is to forward the struggle against the whole colonial mode of production, the entire colonial project, so that African people and so that Palestinians and other peoples in what they have now defined as the Middle East and the Persian Gulf and in all over Africa and throughout the Caribbean, that all of us can be free of this hostile entity, of this imposition of a foreign and alien power over our lives that steals our resources, both human and material resources, and reduces us to the horrible kind of humiliating existence, so that we function more or less as entertainment for the colonizers. We dribble balls and jump high and run touchdowns and tell jokes and do other kinds of things that entertain them. And the notion of us being a conscious sector of humanity that's as intent upon having a future for our children is something that they find unbearable, unimaginable, and they terrorize us and jail us and try to do the kinds of things they're doing to us in occupied Palestine right now. And I just want to say, when I say occupied Palestine, I'm not just talking about some carved out territory there. I'm talking about from the river to the sea. And all of Palestine is occupied, even that sector that they refer to as Israel. So I just want to make those observations, and thank you very much. And I'm really self-critical for being late here. It's a foul up with my office in terms of my missing this. And again, I'm self-critical and I assume responsibility for that. Our solidarity is profound and deep, and we shall keep struggling. We shall win. In fact, we are winning. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Uhuru. Uhuru, Chairman, thank you so much for that statement, and appreciate you making the struggle to be here, Chairman, and just want to really salute everything that you said, from the river to the sea, not one square inch, we will not continue to fight for, and that is for every, every square inch of every occupied piece of land on this planet. And the question of Palestine is so important in this period, and until it's won. And so, as Sister Nancy said in the chat earlier, we won't be free until all of us are free, and that is indeed true. So thank you so much, comrades. And Chairwoman Penny, I know we're just making a quick change in our program, but before we go, I just wanted to name off some of those who have donated already towards our goal. So we have a goal, and I'm self-critical because our goal, the appeals team corrected me, our goal is to raise $2,000 towards towards our legal defense fund. And I really want to salute those who have already kicked us off by going to handsoffforhuru.org/donate. I want to thank Comrade Don, who was on this call, for your $20 donation. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Evelyn, for your $20 donation, or I'm sorry, Evelyn, for your $10 donation. Uhuru, Evelyn. Salute to Caesar, who is also, one of our panelists, for a $100 donation. Uhuru, Caesar. Thank you, Comrade Maureen, for your $50 contribution. And I want to salute, as always, Comrade MQ for a $100 donation. And Comrade MQ is one of those few who made the pledge to raise $1,000 towards this, final phase 2 of the goal. So this is a part of MQ's pledge, and I want to salute you, comrade. Also want to thank Kat for your $10 donation as well. And I think I see another 100 from Comrade MQ to keep that pledge going. So Uhuru, MQ, and Uhuru. So that takes us to, that takes us to a total raise of $390, and that takes us with 1,610 to go. So I know we can do it, comrades, and I just wanted to really take a moment to thank everybody for going to handsoffforhuru.org/donate. So anything you want to say? Yeah, go ahead, comrade.
Yes, I just want to thank Chairman Omali Shatila for that powerful presentation. And I wanted to just say that I want to also give $50 today.
Uhuru.
Please
Well,
add
then
that.
I'm going to match your 50, Penny. So,
Okay.
Uhuru. So that's 50 from Chair Penny. Thank you, comrade. 50 from Mwezi. And if anyone wants to match my 50 or Penny's 50, go ahead and put that in the chat, or go to handsoffforhuru.org/donate. Right on. So I'm excited to bring up our next speaker. And as we talk about, the anti-colonial struggle here, for those of us that are in the what is, characterized as the United States, we understand that from Alaska to Chile, this land is stolen land of the indigenous people. And we, want to recognize that this discussion cannot happen without the recognition of that land and those that are in the part of the liberation struggle. And in this case, the comrades from Unión del Barrio. I want to welcome a member of the Central Committee, Compa Ron Gochez, to, talk about, this struggle, of the Mexican indigenous, liberation struggle here on these lands and in the context of Cuba and Gaza, and to say that Unión and the African People's Socialist Party share a over almost 40-year fraternal bond. And these comrades, we are here on the ground in the trenches, and I just really want to salute you, Compa, and the entire organization. So Uhuru.
Uhuru, comrades, thank you. Thank you for having us. I just want to salute, of course, Chairman Omali, Chairwoman Penny, Comrade Mwezi, and everybody from the African People's Socialist Party for allowing Unión del Barrio to be part of this event today, and to always allow us to be part of the work. That's the true solidarity, the fraternal work that we've been doing now for so long together. I also want to thank Sister Nancy for that report back. It was powerful, and it really reminds us of what's been happening for our people for generations, for hundreds of years, to African people, to indigenous people, and right now in Palestine. For that reason, because of what's happening against our peoples all over the world, in Nuestra America, we say, ante más represión, más resistencia. When there's more repression, there has to be more resistance. And that's the work that all of us are doing here today and all over the world. For us, U.S. imperialism invaded our country and took half of our nation in 1848, half of what it was Mexico in 1848. Exactly 100 years later, the Zionists took Palestine in 1948. And so for that reason, the Mexican people, indigenous people, clearly understand what it is to be colonized, what it is for a foreign people to come in and to take our lands and to treat us like foreigners, to treat us like criminals on our own territory. And so that's why we fully understand and support the Palestinian people's struggle, because it's the same as our struggle. With that being said, my name is Ron Goches. Again, I'm a member of the Central Committee of Unión del Barrio. We're a Latin Americanist indigenous organization based in California. Because we are in California, we met the APSP about 40 years ago in Oakland, and we've been working together ever since. And I don't think we're ever going to stop working together. At this moment, we see how the people in the world are under attack. So for us as an organization, we see it as our duty to join with any struggle where people are fighting against colonialism, where people are fighting for revolution. And that's why for us, it's clear that who we stand with. And when today, in today's event, when we talk about Cuba and Palestine, there's no coincidence that we're talking about these two people in these two places. Cuba is the example that the masses of the people can rise up, can organize, and can win a socialist revolution. And Palestine continues to be the example that no matter how powerful your enemy is, no matter how hard the struggle is, you never give up, you never retreat, and you never surrender. And we know that this is why white power cannot stand Cuba and Palestine. They see them and they understand that for us, the colonized people or the rest of the world, we see them as the shining examples of what we can look up to, what we can be, and how we should struggle. So that's why it's so powerful that today we have Palestinian voices, people who just came back from Cuba, Africans and indigenous people together, talking about how we need to unite our struggles to win our full and total liberation. I don't want to take too much time because there's an amazing lineup coming today on this powerful event. But we, as Unión del Barrio, we stand shoulder to shoulder with the African People's Socialist Party. We will do anything in our power to make sure that the state, the U.S. government, does not kidnap our comrades, the Uhuru 3. And for that reason, a little bit of the work that we've done in LA, in the past year or so, we've done different events. We've been lucky enough and honored to have Chairman O'Malley and the Uhuru 3 come to Los Angeles, come to San Diego to events that we organize. On November 4th of last year, we participated in the Black People's March in Leimert Park on Crenshaw Avenue in the historic Black community in Los Angeles. That was a really powerful march. Then in October of last year, we held several events in Los Angeles and in San Diego, where Chairman O'Malley came, Chairwoman Penny Hess came, and the people here in Southern California were able to hear directly from the comrades and why we should support this struggle and this defense of the Uhuru 3. And then recently, last month in May, again in San Diego and Los Angeles, we did events where we were able to host the comrades. It was standing room only events. It was powerful, it was beautiful. We were able to raise some needed funds for the legal defense. And it's just our small contribution to the work that the APSP is doing and to the self-defense that's necessary so that the state doesn't stop the work that's been happening. So for us, we're going to continue to stand with the APSP. We're going to stand with Cuba, and we stand with Palestine today. The colonized people of the world are fighting back. We're on different fronts, but we're on every continent on this planet. Imperialism is in crisis, and we intend to destroy it in our lifetime so that all people can be free. And those of us who live inside the belly of the beast have that extra special responsibility of fighting this beast right here on the inside where we live. So we call on everybody, we call on all revolutionaries on August 31st to join the march, to join the action in defense of the Uhuru 3. And of course, on September 3rd, we call on everyone to show up to the courthouse in defense of the Uhuru 3. Like the comrades say, we are winning, we will win. From Palestine to Cuba, everywhere else, the struggle continues. Hasta la victoria siempre, compañeros. Venceremos. Thank you.
Venceremos. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Under more oppression, more resistance, and that is exactly what this struggle is about. Thank you, Compa. Comrades in St. Louis, I don't know if you wanted to say anything before Compa Ron has to depart.
Just thank you so much for that powerful presentation. It was powerful to see you in in Los Angeles a few weeks ago, and also, compañera Desiree and others from Unión de Barrio in LA, very powerful, and salute all of the compañeros in San Diego and elsewhere. So we will win. Venceremos. Uhuru, thank you very much.
Uhuru, thank you, compa. I really want to express my appreciation for you and for your continuous celebration of the historical relationship that has existed between our peoples as a consequence of the relationship that has come for us as Unión de Barrio and the African People's Socialist Party. And I want, in recognizing the significance of what you've said, I really have to recognize also an unrecognized, I think, or not recognized enough historical figure in compañero Comandante Ernesto Bustillo, who was a founding member of Unión de Barrio and very dear to us and facilitated bringing us into this relationship that will make it impossible. That is part of the thing that will make it impossible for our struggle to be defeated, and that will be able to allow us to say from river to the sea, Palestine must be free, and that the peoples colonized within the United States, we have to say from sea to shining sea, the indigenous people will be free. So thank you, compa. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Yes, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Comrade Compa Ron. And I know Ron has to leave shortly. Ron was a Central Committee member of Unión del Barrio, and we also have with us on the call the Secretary General of Unión del Barrio, located in Southern California, Compa Adriana Hasso, who is going to stay on with us in case there are any questions, and to continue on in this struggle. So thank you so much, Comrade, and thank you all for being here. So we're going to now move into some of the reports that came from the delegation that many of the panelists that you'll hear from next took when they went to Cuba. And so as we're pulling up those slides, I just want to remind everybody once again that this is a fundraiser for the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Fund. As we said, we are headed, we are expecting trial on September 3rd in Tampa, Florida, and we are having a march, a pre-rally march and rally, a pre-trial march and rally on August 31st, Saturday, August 31st. So we're calling on you to come to the march and rally, be at the trial. We're expecting a month-long trial. These funds will go towards having us build, as our defense, or as our lawyers say, a bulletproof defense. So let's go ahead and make that happen. Our goal is to raise $2,000, and we have invite you to go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate, and really want to salute everybody who has already done that on today's program. So as we, thank you, Comrade, great. So as we move into this next section, I just want to salute the U.S. Hands Off Cuba Committee. We met these comrades. Thank you so much, Ron. We met these comrades on the ground in Southern California at actually an event held by the International League of People's Struggles around Human Rights Day. And it was very clear that the struggle of Cuba, that the demand of the dropping the charges on the Uhuru 3 or taking out the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa campaign, that these had to connect. And I want to salute Comrade Mark Friedman and Brenda Lopez, who are not on the call right now, but these are the co-founders of the U.S. Hands Off Cuba Committee in Los Angeles. And they carry with them 3 demands: to end the blockade on Cuba, to end the travel bans and sanctions, and to remove Cuba off of the state sponsors of terrorist list. And this for the past 2 years, the Hands Off Uhuru campaign has went on the delegation with this committee, which is a committee, made up of labor organizations, youth, student organizers, community members who are, taking on various struggles. And so here are some photos that I'm going to show on behalf of that committee who was not able to attend. And there you see us on the steps at a University of Havana. This is most of the delegation, I believe, here in this photo, from a variety of presentations, conferences on the campuses, going to, as you can see in the top right-hand corner, this was us at Karibuni, which is I believe that's where that was, a essentially a community, grassroots, project to bring back power and creativity and culture back into the hands, of the people, and also, delivering, and somebody can correct me on the number, but over 50 suitcases filled with, medical supplies and other life-saving materials, taking this and delivering this to the Calixto Garcia Hospital in Havana, Cuba. As well as, this whole delegation kicked off with an internship with the CTC, the, Center for, Cuban Workers, as well as the FSM. These are, how, as we understand, Comparan said that Cuba is an example of how we can, of what it looks like when we win and when we struggle and we win. And when the workers are in power, the workers, determine, everything that impacts the people. And we got a really great opportunity to learn and see how this is structured in a socialist government where the workers are in power, from the lower bodies to the upper bodies. And it was really powerful. And so here are some photos of the comrades as we were on 2 of the site visits during our internship. Here's another photo following a conference on campus at University of Havana with the FEU. This is the Federation of, students at the university who, as we learned, that when you have power, students would, consequently also have power. And you see, in this process where, decisions that are made, by the government do not go without, input and feedback and direction and leadership from the youth, from the students. And it was really powerful to see these youth, really, taking ownership of that and unapologetically, understanding that power rests in their hands. And these are just some photos. And I wanted to also salute, which I'll show later, that these students decided to organize an encampment and a protest on campus for Palestine, which, as we can imagine, was nothing like what we have seen in the US and in other areas where it's people who stand in solidarity for Cuba, solidarity for Palestine, come under attack. And we also celebrated May Day with this, great, coalition. Many people who are on this call probably know others who were there, and it was really powerful. And there's so many photos, so these have to get uploaded so that people can find them another way. There's just not enough time. But I really want to say that it was a profound May Day celebration. The whole country and everybody who came in solidarity showed up on that day. And so here are just some more photos, another collage of other photos that I just wanted to pull together, showing that on May 2nd, then, the day after we attended the international conference, which took place, which over, thousands of delegates from around the world, address by the, by the Cuban government, by the Cuban president, as well as, a visit to Grandma, which is the newspaper, in Cuba. And this is really important to understand that, as we understand that Cuba, Gaza, Africa, this whole colonial mode of production is also waging a serious war, on ideas, how people think, how people understand how to sum up the world. And Grandma, this newspaper, the oldest, longest newspaper in print in Cuba, we had a chance to visit this institution and to just continue to salute how Cuba is taking on this, war of ideas. And that picture up in the top right-hand corner is a tank that is a real, structure following the, revolution. And this is placed on the campus at the university as a representation of the ongoing struggle in the battle against the war of ideas. Uhuru. And just one last photo I wanted to show. Those of some of us had to leave early, but those that stayed on past the delegation had a chance to participate in this, massive show of support and, protest and encampment on the campus at University of Havana. And there are many pictures that we'll also be able to upload and show, and maybe others have some as well. But here are just some photos that I really wanted to salute the, Student Federation. So with that, I'm going to sum it up there, and I want to appreciate again Mark and Brenda, who made the, all the efforts that they could to be on for today. And we're going to move our agenda now and hear from our next report back. This will be from Comrade Musa Bey. Musa Bassi. Musa is a member of Black Men Build in Los Angeles. Musa joined us on the delegation and has just been a really solid comrade, helped carry the Hands Off banner proudly, and just really wanted to salute Musa because of the organization that he's representing on today. And so I'm going to turn it to you, comrade. And again, welcome and thank you for being here. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Comrade Mwezi, thank you.
Uhuru.
So I represent Black Men Build Los Angeles. We were founded 3 years ago as a way to activate Black men, African men to organize and forge coalitions for the liberation of all people in the African working class. And so our work focuses on direct action. We've been at the encampments at UCLA for Palestine. We've also helped organize the MLK Day March Against Imperialism. Greetings to all of the organizations who collaborate with us who are present today. And it's also why we support the complete lifting of the blockade on Cuba, not simply the half measure the White House came out with a few days ago, but the full removal of Cuba from the list of state sponsors of terrorism. As we know the seriousness and urgency of the struggle against colonialism and imperialism. We also do political education, men's circles, women's circles, mutual aid, policy advocacy, and community events. And so the purpose of our trip was to build solidarity against the blockade and adopt the same goals or lobby for the same goals as other organizations here, as Comrade Mwezi just said, with LA Hands Off Cuba. And we were also looking to learn about Cuba's socialist society and what it looks like to have a state that is actively decolonizing and in which the workers are in power. And so this is basically the background for why we see what we see in Cuba today. There was this idea of we need to control these raw materials in these third world countries in order to maintain imperialism, maintain capitalism. And as our comrades earlier said, they overthrew that. And so we were going to learn about how Cuban society has been structured in response or in the aftermath of the Cuban Revolution, as it's still ongoing as well. So our first place that I stopped at was because I came a little later than the other comrades, but the first place I stopped at was at Caribuni, and this was a center of Afro-Cuban culture in Havana, and we met with many Black-led cultural organizations, and we witnessed the capoeira show, and it was very spiritual and grounding for us to witness this demonstration. I don't want to call it a performance because it's a sign of how African people have resorted to spirituality as a form of warfare, as a form of struggle against colonial power. Because the dance, it was martial arts combined with dance and religion. And we also met with Comrade Victor Dreke. He was one of the commanders that Cuba sent to Angola to help the Angolans overthrow their Portuguese colonial entity. And also Cuba was also active in the fight against apartheid and helped liberate Namibia as well. We were also present at May Day, and as Comrade Mwezi referenced, that's me holding the Uhuru poster. And the purpose of May Day was to celebrate the achievements of the Cuban labor movement since 1959, condemn the US blockade, and essentially celebrate all that the Cuban workers have been able to achieve despite the blockade. We then visited Calixto Garcia Hospital. This is one of the most, services the most patients in Havana, and this was where we also shared our suitcases of medical supplies. We met with medical staff and learned about the impacts of the sanctions. and which prevent them from getting many like essential or basic medical supplies. They're definitely in need of pacemakers right now. I believe there's a campaign right now. Global Health Partners is seeking to send those supplies. I would, if I find it, I'll drop it in the chat. But yes, this was our main visit. I believe we donated collectively, we were able to send $50,000 to $100,000 worth of supplies. And that's a very small contribution relative to the need. But I was very humbled to have been able to give even a little bit. Then we went to Hotel Melia. So this was a demonstration of the state-private partnership with Cuba. We did not stay in this hotel, but we sat mainly for presentations to hear about how the Trump-Biden sanctions have affected Cuba. I say Trump-Biden because even though Trump was the one who imposed these sanctions, Biden has done little to nothing to undo them. And the reason why the sanctions on hotels have hurt Cuba so much is because tourism is the #1 source of Cuba's revenue. So once these sanctions came in, that was when the economy really started to take a hit. Then we went to the university in Havana, and they talked about institutional racism through a government agency called Flasco and Cuba Color, programs aimed at uplifting Afro-Cubans. And I agree, we should focus on colonialism, decolonization. It's interesting how Cuba is tackling the issue of race in the sense of how do we undo the mechanisms of colonialism that have created disparities for African people around the world. And it was informative to see how the government is aiming to do that. And then we saw a presentation about the new constitution that Cuba's passed. So this was a representation of the direct democracy that Cuba has. Like for our constitution in the United States, we need a constitutional convention. We need a group of all the elites of the country basically to come together and say, let's change the constitution. But in Cuba, the people get to decide when they want to change in the constitution, and they get to all vote on the language of the amendments, on what they see as fundamental rights. So the new constitution passed, I believe, in 2017, added new protections for family rights, the right to assembly, the right to food, housing, and healthcare. And even though Cuba did introduce private sector activities, they're still highly regulated because they want to prevent the emergence of monopoly capital again. They want to make sure that there isn't an entity that grows too much, that it becomes more powerful than the workers. We also engaged with the youth. So representatives from the Young Communist League and the Federation of University Students. This was also an independent trip I took to the Asociación Hermanos Saiz. And all of these are examples of how young people are actively involved in the political system. So they sit on the boards of universities, not just as observer members, but as voting members. And they have their own union that plays a role in the creation of laws. And our visit was capped off by a speech by Miguel Díaz-Canel, the president of Cuba. It celebrated the 85th anniversary of the revolution, and it was focused on international solidarity. So acknowledgement of Palestine, Bolivia, Nicaragua, and Syria, and thanks to the countries who sent aid to Cuba despite the blockade, but it was also a condemnation of the capitalist, imperialist, international economic system. So the use of predatory IMF loans and the use of destabilization to create and maintain poverty in the global south and resource extraction for the global north. And that was my mistake. This was our last visit. So we went to the Granma, the Cuba-sponsored newspaper, and we learned about the successes and challenges they've had in the modern age as technology evolves, but they are still very dedicated and committed to the revolution. And they actually told us we were the first US delegation to visit them. So that was very powerful. And so one of my big takeaways and our takeaways as an organization was how we can connect this fight to Congo, Palestine, Haiti, Sudan, Venezuela, all of the countries being targeted for refusing to align with US hegemony, and seeing how direct democracy works, how worker power works, and how we can take inspiration from the many achievements of the Cuban Revolution, but especially in the areas of healthcare and education. And so I would say this concludes my presentation, but I just want to say that we are in solidarity with all members of the Uhuru movement, the chairman, and all members of APSP who are targeted by the state. I just donated $40 to the Uhuru Defense Fund, and I would encourage other people to donate as well. If there are people who are looking to get involved or know people who would be interested in our organization, we have 2 upcoming events. On June 27th, we have the men's circle at Radical Hood Library. We also had a women's circle there on June 2nd, but we have them all around LA. So if you are also interested in hosting a circle, please let us know. We also have a June 29th political education event. This will also be a report back for Cuba. One of our other members has also recently visited, and they will be sharing their experiences on the trip. It was with a different organization and a different agenda. So I know this will be a rich opportunity to learn even more about the Cuban Revolution. Thank you, comrades. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Wow. Thank you so much, Comrade Musa. That was a really powerful and comprehensive, report back, and just the, your reflections on, there's just a lot of hearts and things happening in the chat because it was really powerful, Comrade. I just really wanted to salute Black Men Build the work that this organization is doing, which informed how it was able to, go on the ground in Cuba and to really have an understanding, of the significance, of the consequences of the Cuban Revolution and what is to be done. And I did want to also just really thank you so much for letting us know about those dates of the upcoming events and how people can get involved with Black Men Build. Please put that information in the chat, and we'll make sure that we can get it, also shared out with, with others. And we would plan to be there on the ground in LA for your upcoming events as well. And I did want to also thank you for your donation and salute and unite with your call to action to, donate to this fight back. And Comrade Musa's was just one of the reports, but really helped to kind of lay out and expand some of the, really important activities that took place. So thank you, Comrade, for being here. And I just hope that you will, stay on if you can for question and answers. If there's any questions, please leave that information in the chat. And I did want to also just read a quick comment from Mark Friedman, who I mentioned earlier is with the U.S. Hands Off Cuba Committee. Mark did make a quick statement in the in the chat here on Zoom before we move to our next speaker. So just wanted to read your comment, Mark. Mark says, thank you, APSP, for your solidarity with Cuba. We return that solidarity. We apologize that we are not on. Mwezi and Musa speak eloquently for us, and we are on our way to an important Amazon labor union vote in Staten Island in New York City. Mark says, we are with you. We shall be with you in Tampa, Uhuru. And this defense is important for all of us. We must win it. We need to broaden out this defense. It is a question of free speech. Right on. Thank you so much, Comrade Mark. Really want to salute you and also say that, it was great to have you, join us very, very briefly. So comrades, and the Amazon labor, I meant to, they were in some of the pictures, but those were some other comrades that were on the ground. So there's Mark doing some of that work as well with the Amazon Labor Union, who also joined us on this delegation. So next up, we're going to invite up Comrade Cesar Sanchez, who is a central committee or, who sits on the, leading leadership body of the National Network on Cuba, and is also a, member and leader in the Cuba C, New York, New Jersey coalition. And we met Comrade Cesar on the ground. He is a, really profound volunteer and supporter of the Fightback, of the Hands Off Uhuru campaign. And we want to appreciate Comrade Cesar for joining us. So if you have any slides or anything that you need to show, I think you do. And I know our AV is probably working on that for you, but there we go. It's great to see you, Comrade. And I'm going to turn it over to you for your report. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Well, I just want to say greetings to all my brothers and sisters, all my comrades. I want to thank the Hands Off Fightback Coalition for organizing this webinar, all the panelists that spoke today, and more to speak afterwards. I want to thank all the attendees. Thank you for coming, and just keep on supporting the Hands Off Uhuru movement. Just go to the website, and we have, and of course the Cuba Solidarity movement and stuff. We stand with you, Amali. We stand with you, Penny. We stand with you, Jesse. We're on your side all the way. And we're gonna continue to fight. We're gonna keep on continuing to fight. So saying that, I'm just gonna start off with my slides. I'm gonna try to keep this very concise and be mindful for others. I know we are very close, close to the time. So basically, our trip to Cuba, when we went for 2 weeks on April 25th to May 4th, was very challenging. Very challenging because, as many have spoken already about the blockade, and we talked about the slight history behind it. We did talk about the whole purpose behind the sanctions, the blockade, and it's all part of a colonial and imperialist project. But while we were there, we have to witness it firsthand. It's very difficult for all of us, very challenging for all of us. There's a shortage of numerous things from hygiene products to infrastructures, tools, things Cuba needs to build their buildings and bridges, and it's energy. The list goes on and on, but that's the whole purpose of the blockade. The whole purpose of the blockade is to keep on isolating Cuba from the rest of the world, and at the same time strangling Cuba, because their objective is one purpose: to crush the Cuban Revolution. That's it. There's nothing else. So we could just go to the next slide, please, and just pretty much talk about the United Nations, which we have another vote coming up very soon. I believe it's the end of October. And once again, the National Assembly of the United Nations has voted unanimously since 1992 that the blockade against Cuba is uncalled for. In many ways, it's inhumane, and there's no need for it. In fact, in 2023 in November, 187 countries. Again, I'm going to repeat that again. 187 countries has voted against the blockade. 2 voted to keep it going: the United States and Israel. There you go. I find it amazing that when we keep on talking about democracy, I think by now anybody listening to this, it's, we all know it's a joke. It's not, it's a facade. It's a way to just keep on telling people that, we live in this kind of democratic way that, that by voting in so many ways, it could bring changes. It will bring changes, but that's only if the people keeps on pressuring. In the case of Cuba, you see all these countries voting for it, and yet for some reason they just want to keep it going because it's the only way that they could actually take down the Cuban Revolution. Because since 1959, that's one thing the United States has never forgave, the Cuban people. It was the fact that they over top of the capitalist system and implemented a socialist government. Next slide, please. International solidarity. That word solidarity, sometimes it gets tossed around way too much nowadays. I think that right now, what we have in this webinar, to me, that's solidarity because we're reaching out from Cuba to Gaza, from Gaza to the hands of the Uhuru movement, to all the coalitions, fighting for social justice. That word solidarity, in many ways, I feel, and again, I'm just speaking for myself and what I've witnessed and stuff. It seems to me solidarity is only for certain people, but not for these kind of people. If we're gonna build a movement, if we're gonna build a powerful movement, we gotta build that solidarity. We gotta bridge that gap. It's not gonna be easy, but we all have to understand, as my dear brother and chairman, comrade O'Malley said it. It's all a colonial project. It's all of imperialist colonial. You have to recognize this is the world we live in. And this solidarity conference that we attended, which many has actually from all over the world has came, from all Latin America. African delegations was there. You got people, of course, from the United States, from Canada, our European comrades. The Cuban Solidarity Movement showed up as well. It just kind of shows you like what true solidarity is all about. To not only help Cuba to lift the blockade, to take Cuba off the SSOT list, but to build a better society. Cuba is the beacon of hope. Next slide, please. Media and education resource. We're living in this kind of like bizarre world where everything it's so. But I can't even pronounce it. Media today is, and it's nothing new. It's mainstream media has been so biased and just keep on spilling nothing but toxic propaganda. When it comes to Cuba, ever since the 1959 rule, it's an ongoing process. It's gone so bad, at the time that before social media, that people started believing all the propaganda the U.S. empire keep on, spewing to the people. When the fact you had to go see it yourself. When it comes to education, when it comes to media, thank God. And like in this slides here, we have, and I'm just giving you many examples. We have a documentary from Nagash Abdurrahman, which I was a good friend of mine and comrade, and he is actually an award-winning documentary called Cuba and Africa, which I highly recommend people to see it. And if you have seen it, fantastic. Share the video link. If you go to cubaandafrica.com, you can sign up and you get more information. I believe we have one coming up in Brooklyn, New York. That's coming on June 29th. And we have one on July 25th, I believe, which I'm helping organize, and that's going to be in Michigan. So again, if you go to cubaandafrica.com, sign up, you get all the latest information when it comes to history and film documentary. Belly of the Beast is an independent journalist from Liz Oliva Fernandez. It's so fantastic. I can't even say, it's breathtaking, how she actually shed light, and it shows you like the hypocrisy of the U.S. politicians, the media, and just keeps on repeating. And thank God for Liz, a Cuban journalist from Cuba, who came to the state not too long ago, and she actually exposed these politicians about the blockade and why it's no need to have the blockade when simply we could just have the dialogue and we could work together. But unfortunately, you do have a couple of group of people down in Florida that just want to keep on going. Of course, you have the neoliberals and the Republican parties that just wants to keep on going. So if we go to the next slides, I believe we have I'm sorry, the next one, please. Here, this was actually the United Front on rally to stand with the Palestinian people. This was actually, and I believe many of our comments already talked about it, was actually at the University of Havana. You see that, this is about the thousands and what I've heard before, and this was like the day before we had to come back from Cuba, but it just kind of shows you like how Cubans have always been, and has proven to show the world what true international solidarity is really all about. And here we are. And yet there was no police. See, the thing that really strikes me the most is like there was really no cops. There was no, I guess you could say, cops with tactical gears, or you had all the wagons out there just ready to just take people out, as opposed to here at the encampment where you see the Palestinians, pro-Palestinians, solidarity movement for the Palestinians just getting their head bashed, being crushed by these police officers, recognizing that, that we are living in a police state, and that the movement, the pro-Palestinian movement, has galvanized such a new wave of movement. And I think that's very important to actually focus on here. This picture tells a lot of stories. On the next slide, when we, that part of the blockade, part of the problem of the blockade is that, when we talk about Cuba doctors abroad, the Cuba healthcare system is really facing numerous challenges. I can honestly say when I was there, we did so. I mean, it's not. I mean, I know there's been a lot of rumors that the Cuban healthcare system is a verge of collapse. It's not. I think it's going through a lot of difficult moments. Its resources very limited, and there's one thing that the Cuban doctors has always been is that Cuba's always send out doctors abroad, whereas the U.S. empire have always sent nothing but weaponry and bombs and military. And this is one picture here. This was actually taken, I believe, in 1990s. This was actually during the Chernobyl 86 nuclear disaster, where the Cuban doctors, the state of Cuba, took in over, I believe, 2,000 children from Ukraine and actually cured them and helped many of them. Unfortunately, some of the children did not make it because of the exposure of radiation. But I think that when it comes to Cuba, and you talk about the doctors and you talk about the humanity, Cuba, it's the perfect example. And on the next slide, you will see that we have brought, along with all the delegations from the United States to Canada, to the European, our Africans delegations, and in certain parts of Asia, we have bought over close to 2 tons. I'm going to repeat that again, close to 2 tons of medical supply. And here's just one of the few that we have taken at a clinic. And I believe this was actually in Cienfuegos, the province of Cienfuegos in Cuba. And this is, I mean, we have put so much that we couldn't even take the picture. When we took the picture, I mean, it was very hard, but we just took the best we could because there was so many. But I think overall it was a great campaign. We did actually help out a lot of Cuban doctors and physicians, and it consists of everything. It was from rubber gloves to like devices for glucose blood meters, stethoscopes, and it just goes on and on. But I mean, this was a very huge campaign, which kind of leads me to 2 campaigns right now that we are working on. And I'm hoping that people and all our coalitions and all our comrades will help us spread the word. One of them is actually the pacemakers that we are really advocating, that we're really pushing. If you want to help us out, you go to nnoc.org. You can go to savelives.uscubanormalization.org. Our goal is to reach $150,000. I mean, we're already within, I think, close to 2 months. I believe we have reached over 70%, which I think we're going to overpass that goal. But I think that the more, the better. I mean, keep in mind that we have elders there who are actually, I believe 80 of them, or more or less, are actually using external pacemakers. In other words, they're actually connected to some of the devices there. They can't even leave the hospital. So imagine that, because they don't have the pacemakers to be implanted on them. And that's one of the campaigns that we're really pushing for. And of course, the other one is to take Cuba off the SSOT list. Now, I really encourage all my comrades to go to cubaundersiege.org. And if you go to that website, you will see the hypocrisy. You will see all the murders, the assassination plots, the sabotage, the threats, that all these right wings, death squads, paramilitaries from the Omega 7s, the Alpha 66, all of them has ties to both the Republican and the Democratic Party, including Bob Menendez, who was actually facing corrupt charges. Look at that, so I really do encourage people to go to that website. Of course, I think that once we get this message across, we can expose the lies, and the hypocrisy of the U.S. government. So I think that's it for in terms of my slides. I just want to have a closing remark. I think that we're facing very difficult challenges ahead of us. But I think that, we have to stick together. And I know even though this is a virtual webinar, it's not the same when you're at a rally or at a conference, as many of us, when we saw that strength of solidarity in Cuba, we witnessed it, we felt it, we were there. I think that, here in this virtual space, I think that, I'm hoping, I'm encouraging people to please reach out to me, myself. Please reach out to the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition, any organization here, that spoke today. Stand with the Palestinian people. We stand with the Cuban people. And with that, I say, Viva Cuba, Viva Palestina, hands off Uhuru, free Leonard Peltier, free Manuel Burgumar, all the political prisoners of the U.S. empire. Hasta la victoria siempre, venceremos. Gracias.
Venceremos. Wow, thank you so much, compa. Cesar, it's always a pleasure to have you, and it's really great to have you, on the front lines of this struggle, in this report back, because you do so much behind the scenes as well. And so it was great to see you on the ground, in Cuba, and really want to appreciate your report back because, you raised some things that are happening on the international scale that people should know about, like this upcoming UN vote, as well as you mentioned, to go to CubaUnderSiege.org, I believe. And so I want to ask you if you can, put that in the chat as well. So as you said, this is a call to action that, this is an important space for us to take this out there, but we must be on the ground. We must, spread this out across the world. And so, really use this as an opportunity to contact the members of the coalition. And I want to salute Cuba C, New York, New Jersey for being a part of that, and you for representing this, remarkable work. So thank you, Cesar. And also to say that, to speak to that call, we have people tuning in. I just want to say where some people are tuning in from. We have people tuning in from Orange County, California, Long Beach, California, Houston, Texas, St. Louis, Missouri, Tampa, Florida, Long Beach, California, Washington, D.C., Boston, Massachusetts, Oakland, California, London, UK, Mesa, Arizona, Tacoma, Washington, and Columbus, Georgia. So that's just, and New York. Thank you so much, Sohini. These are just some of the places where the people are tuning in from. And I want to salute everybody for making that call, and to remind everybody that we are, seeking to raise our $2,000 goal for today's webinar. We are inching closer and closer, and I'm going to just want to thank all the donors, and we're going to be able to thank everybody again in the appeal. But we are over halfway past our goal, so we have 920 left to raise. And I want to thank everybody who has made their pledges and their donations. Lots of $50 matches in the mix. So that was a great call, and want to salute everybody who has contributed. So Uhuru comrades, we're going to move to our next speaker, and I want to just really looking forward to the last few reports. We're going to be hearing next from Comrade Cynthia Aguirre, who's in Southern California, who is here representing the Western Service Workers Association. And really excited to have met this comrade on the ground in Cuba, and then see them again during the Uhuru 3 tour, and to really speak about this mutual aid organization that was able to go to Cuba with the lens of, putting, power and resources back in the hands of the workers, and to hear from her as well. So thank you, comrades Sin or Cynthia. It's great to have you on, and we'll make sure that we can get your video started and hear from you as well on today. Uhuru. There she is. Uhuru.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great.
And I'm sorry I don't have any slides to show, but I hope my words have an impact today. Yeah. But thank you again, Comrade Mwizi. So my name is Cynthia Aguirre, and I'm a part-time organizer with Western Service Workers Association in Orange County. Western Service Workers Association, or WSWA for short, is an all-volunteer membership organization of low-income service workers. We work together to organize food, clothing, preventative medical and dental care, legal advice, and much more, while we fight to end poverty and implement the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. We are community supported and take no government money or strings attached funding so that we can stay 100% independent and fight based on membership needs and demands, not on how government or corporate grants will allow us to organize. We have a winning strategy to organize unrecognized workers and recognized workers, those both covered and not covered under national labor law, so we can unite the many to defeat the few. At WSWA, we're here to win and here to stay. I can't think of anything more important than to organize workers here at home. It was definitely clear after visiting Cuba and attending the May Day Parade and the Solidarity Conference that our international brothers and sisters are sick and tired of being sick and tired. All over the world, people are rising up, but what we and they need most of all is systemic change here in the US. We organize workers in the US to wield power and change the US policies that are harming working people here and abroad. We know that if working people had power, we would not spend our tax dollars on bombing children overseas, especially while we see our friends, family, and neighbors struggle with affording basic necessities. Our justice, education, and healthcare systems are corrupt at their very core, all because our government values profit more than working people. Our struggles go hand in hand, and with changing that, I'd like to give a special thanks to the U.S. Hands Off Cuba community for allowing me to join the 2024 delegation. Cuba is a beautiful country filled with beautiful people, but what I saw was unacceptable. Doctors wanting to save lives, but literally can't because of the shortages in medical supplies and medication due to the blockade. Civilians facing shortages in electricity, fuel, and basic necessities due to the blockade. This inhumane blockade is being used to strangle the Cuban people to the point of collapse. Cubans have no choice but to resist in order to survive. Being a part of this delegation was such a privilege, but witnessing the living conditions Cubans have to deal with is criminal. That's exactly what this government and economic system is: criminal. We don't have to see the atrocities in Cuba, Palestine, or even here at home to confirm that we need systemic change today. It is election year in the US and folks are hoping for a better tomorrow, but unfortunately, we know that whether Trump or Biden wins, whether the Republicans or Democrats are in power, there is one real winner, and that winner will always be Wall Street. Wall Street has won every election and will continue to do so because they will not allow us to vote or legislate their power away. We are allowed to talk or discourse or make posts about our dislikes and distrust of the status quo. But when we start fighting back by uniting working people from all walks of life together, we know how far this government will truly go to stop us. From imprisoning and killing political leaders, to committing genocide, to stripping Cuba and Palestine of their humanity and ways of life. But that just goes to show how powerful we are when we organize, and how scared those who profit are from us joining together in the real world of us building material ties around common problems that all working people face. Because people here in the US are no stranger to the oppression either, whether that be police brutality, the violence of purposeful poverty, exploitation at work, or high rental costs caused by a handful of real estate magnates. All the people here need to do is get organized. We know freedom is not given, but taken. People all over the world are resisting, but these countries need the monkey off their backs now. The famous revolutionary leader Che Guevara said, "I envy you. You North Americans are very lucky. You are fighting the most important fight of all. You live in the belly of the beast." This is because we have the unique opportunity to make change in the country most holding back change around the world. What the Cuban people and Cuban revolutionary leaders need most is for the US to get off their back so they can grow socialism in their country without the constant threat of a coup or the stranglehold of an illegal blockade. But it's up to us to take action, not just discourse, but to build real material ties in order to make change today, acting with, like Martin Luther King Jr. said, the fierce urgency of now. It is all of our responsibility to organize people here in the US, including those who have heard misleading things from our mainstream media about what it takes to make change. We need them because there is strength in numbers, and at the end of the day, they are working people more and more unhappy about what's going on in our country and need us too. This is about saving lives, and we really don't have the luxury of time or waiting for the next great leader to come along and change things. That That needs to be a decision from all of us to fight for the change we want to see. More dedicated, committed leadership, willing to not only give their thoughts and words, but their bodies and time is what will bring change about. Our planet is dying. Our community leaders are being indicted. Working people all over the world are struggling to survive. Now is not the time to mourn or sympathize, but the time to organize. So please let this not be empty words, but a call to action. Drop the charges on the Uhuru 3, take Cuba off the state sponsors of terrorism list, and end the inhumane blockade. Call for an immediate ceasefire and an end to the genocide in Palestine. Free Leonard Peltier and all other political prisoners. Implement the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, which are the 17 goals all countries of the United Nations, including the US, agreed to implement by 2030, starting with ending poverty. So please, after this, if you have any questions about how to practically plug into this fight right here in the United States, direct message me or call me after this meeting about WSWA and learning a method of organizing that has been tested to be tried and true for over 50 years, as well as an education program on how to successfully do this. And if you want to contact WSWA, we don't have any socials because we focus on the person-to-person approach and are getting our website up soon. We do some things online, but use those as an addition to our real-world organizing instead of the other way around. Strategically, we rely on the powerful connections you can make face-to-face and voice-to-voice. But there's a great way to reach us, which is to call our office. Our office is in Santa Ana, California, and it is staffed by real-life organizers who will answer the call 7 days a week, any day, anytime. So you can call to get in touch with someone immediately. Change is coming, but only when we bring it. Thank you for letting me speak, and keep up the fight.
Uhuru. Wow, really want to salute that powerful statement. You were indeed right. Without slides, comrade, you made it clear. Just, one thing I want to appreciate was your, speaking about the realities. Cuba, as you said, is a beautiful country, and speaking about the realities that, that we witness on the ground in Cuba. I think that was really important, especially coming from the lens of, WSWA, and, what we all, understand is unacceptable, that people should not have the ability to feed, clothe, and house themselves, or to save lives in the matter of what you referenced. And I want to join you in calling on everyone to get organized, find an organization, get connected, to this struggle. And I hope that you, Sin, will put any information in the chat as well, so that people can know how to find you all on the ground as well. And I want to salute and appreciate you all for being a part of this fight back. And yes, when we organize, we win. And like you said, it's what we, as we say, it's what we say, but it's when we start to actually organize, that's when it becomes a threat. But that's our biggest weapon that we have as the people. So really want to salute you, comrade. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sin. And great, comrade. So we are really looking forward to our next, we have one last report back and then a video from a student in Elam before we continue with our program for today. So thank you again, Sin. And I want to welcome up now comrade Naisha Lin, who this comrade we met on the ground in Cuba, but again, like I said, this was an event for ILPS, was where we met the Hands Off Cuba Committee, but really wanted to salute ILPS overall as described as international organization that seeks to coordinate anti-imperialist and democratic movements around the world. And really want to salute this comrade who I had the pleasure of meeting in Cuba, although we both live in California, but had to go to Cuba to meet each other. And it was really profound. So glad you're here. And I'll turn it over to you, comrade Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you for giving me some space to speak today. As Amwezi said, my name is Niusha. I'm with the International League of People's Struggle, US country chapter. And as was mentioned, we are a global anti-imperialist alliance. I just want to start by sharing a little bit about some of the work that we're doing at the moment. Concretely, a lot of our work is around organizing campaigns designed to strike blows against against the various expressions of imperialism, mobilize the people, conduct political education. We do host events for exchanging of ideas and analysis and mass mobilization. And right now, one of our central campaigns is the Defend People's Struggle campaign, which is principally targeting state repression. At the moment, there are three major prongs of that. One is targeting concretely the various federal, state, and local domestic counterinsurgency programs, which the US unleashes on organizations and communities under the guise of so-called counterterrorism. And of course, we then draw the connections to how the US exports these counterinsurgency programs and measures in collaboration with puppet states around the world in order to preserve its hegemony. And on the flip side of what we're against, though, we also emphasize the solution of building an organized resistance. And in this time, in this period, we're seeing a rising crisis of the global imperialist system. The US really continues to sort of fight to try to preserve its interests. And as such, it's provoking more and more war against those it sees as rivals or trying to destabilize those who it sees as threats to its power. And namely, it targets what is actually the greatest threat to its current power, which is the organized movement around the world of workers, peasants, and people fighting for national liberation and self-determination, such as the valiant and steadfast struggles of the Cuban people and the movement in Palestine. The folks who spoke before me did a very good job breaking down a lot of the day-to-day of what happened while we were in Cuba. I also, in sort of the end of April and early May, including May Day, had the privilege of joining many of the people who were here today in the delegation alongside the LA Hands Off Cuba Committee, really with the goal of visiting Cuba and learning more about the struggle of the Cuban people in continuing to oppose the pressure and attacks at the hands of the US, which is very clearly seen in the decades-long blockade. And so I have a tendency to ramble, so feel free to cut me off if I go over time. But to not just reiterate what was shared already, I want to focus a little bit more on some of the major takeaways that really struck me while I was there. During my time in Cuba, I had the opportunity to meet with many workers, youth, and different people's organizations, hearing the lessons that they had to share, their view of the situation in Cuba, but also the relationship to the world condition at the time, what was happening around the world, and their view of it as well. We had the privilege, as folks mentioned, to visit the universities where we received presentations on the history of the Cuban movement, as folks mentioned, the constitutional changes and the political economy there. We also got to visit the hospital, meet with many different trade unions and workers' organizations there. And I was able to attend ICAP as well, which is responsible for coordinating a large part of Cuba's international work. And one of our last few events was closing out with the major solidarity conference. And so not only was I able to meet people's organizations and workers' organizations in Cuba, but also was able to be shoulder to shoulder with and talk with organizations from around the world, throughout Latin America, Africa, and across the Asia Pacific as well. And so really being able to just talk with people who are advancing their various people's movements, right? And one of the key things, right, is when we look at Cuba and Palestine, right, even when we look at the Palestinian liberation movement against the US-backed Israeli occupation or the Cuban Revolution's continued assertion of its national independence, these are really examples of how the continued advance of the people's movements around the world are able to step-by-step strike blows against the imperialist system. And so two of the key lessons that sort of stuck with me when I was in Cuba are, one, really the decisiveness and the steadfastness of the Cuban people to really clearly lay out the various challenges and struggles which present themselves as they're continuing to progress their revolution, but even more importantly, their decisiveness to be able to resolve and overcome these obstacles. Every single conversation I had, no one was shy or scared to say that things may be hard because of the conditions which they're under right now, but every conversation concluded with the different ways that everyone was sort of taking up the challenge of mobilizing the masses to resolve these problems, to overcome them, to really continue to develop new and creative solutions to advance their struggle against these different odds. And number two was the emphasis of international solidarity, the necessity to build that unity of the movements around the world. And so those were the two lessons that really stuck with me, right? And really were something that I think about a lot, right? As we continue to make our steps towards victory and freedom and liberation, the enemy unfortunately will clamp down even harder, right? They will do whatever they can to try to crush us, and so we will continue to need to develop new solutions in that regard. And so I kind of want to wrap up, but in this time, we've seen an unprecedented rise in the unity and organized resistance of the Palestinian liberation movement and the commensurate rise in the global solidarity movement. We have seen a similar increased unity in the Cuban Revolution and the Cuban people to advance their struggle. And so to close out, unfortunately at the moment, right, the ruling class may have the upper hand in the balance of forces, but history has shown us that it's through unity and the resoluteness and our ability to understand clearly the conditions of our struggle now that we will be able to actually change the balance of forces and ultimately free ourselves from the current system. And as ILPS, of course, on principle, we stand for international solidarity, but I also emphasize that there's the very concrete component to this. As many have emphasized, we're up against a common enemy. We know that the US state unleashes its violence and repression to preserve its own interests, whether attacks on those organizing in the belly of the beast, or the attacks against the Uhuru movement, or the military and political backing that it offers to its puppet governments to repress those movements for liberation, the economic domination, and the very large network of military alliances that lay its body across the world. The struggle of the people for liberation are concrete blows against this beast in Palestine, in Cuba, here in the US, and all around the world. And we know that every advance weakens the system and sets the basis for the further surging forward of our movements and other movements for liberation. And we know that the enemy recognizes that when we're united, we actually vastly outnumber them. And when we're organized, we can actually shift the balance in our favor. So through this common struggle, we're able to accumulate lessons to further advance our movements, build common understanding, and of course, reach higher and higher levels of organization until ultimate victory. So I hope that we are able to take up these major lessons, right? The perseverance and ability to resolve our problems, know concretely that the system which is currently presenting itself to us today is not in our interest, and it is not the only option, but in fact, we can build a pro-people system. We can fight for the end of imperialism, the end of capitalism, the end of colonialism, and the advance of socialism. And also that when we are facing a global system now more than ever, it's essential to build international solidarity, build the unity in our struggles and the struggle of working people, youth, students, and all sectors. So I am over time, but I advance the calls to end the blockade against Cuba and to remove Cuba from the so-called state sponsor of terrorism list. This is a tried and tested tool of the enemy to attack us. And I also want to encourage everyone to continue to support the defense of the Uhuru 3 and the Uhuru movement. And please mobilize on September 3rd or really call attention to it. I want to lastly invite you all, as part of our campaigns as ILPS, we have been building up the Resist NATO coalition. NATO was mentioned earlier as one of the most consolidated military alliances, which puts forward this counterterrorism pillar. It's that bridge between these domestic attacks and the international attacks. And so we will be mobilizing in DC from July 6th through the 11th while NATO is there. And so we invite you all to join us there. And we want to uplift these different struggles and show those connections. And again, most importantly, strike concrete blows against the current system. So thank you for letting me go over time. And thank you all for letting me speak today.
Yes, thank you so much, Nusha. Appreciate you, comrade. And really wanted to salute your your being here as a representative of IFPS and some of the closing remarks that you made around around organization. And as we understand, like you were talking about concrete blows. And one thing we talk about, as you mentioned, in terms of international solidarity, is that it's often said that the highest form of unity is through organization. And we have to be able to overturn this constant ability and struggle to try to divide the people, when we recognize that, like as you said, and as we recognize, we have one common enemy. And so I just really want to salute your being here, and also the work that we will continue to do to make the demands to drop the charges on the Uhuru 3, NATO, everything that's happening in the Asia Pacific. There's some upcoming mobilizations happening on the ground, I know, here in Southern California around RIMPAC. So we will not stop, and we want to appreciate you for being here, comrade Uhuru. All right, so yes, drop the charges on the Uhuru 3. Uhuru, comrade. So I just want to, we're going to pull up a video of our next, our last report from Cuba. And before we do, I just want to again remind everybody and thank everybody for donating. We are getting closer to our goal. So please go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate. And so we can make it easy on our appeals team. They won't take up too much time calling on you to give. And also, share that link with others. And we want to thank everybody who has made their contribution. So I just want to, okay, the video is coming back up again. And this is a video statement from a student who is currently in Elam. This student's name is Sada Al-Musbahi, and Sada is a student of Elam who, of course, works closely with, under the leadership of IFCO and Pastors for Peace. And I really want to salute this young student who was there on the ground, came to our hotel in Havana to give a report and, and an update about what's happening. So we're going to hear from Sada a brief audio statement, and really glad that she was able to make this contribution. So Uhuru, we can roll the clip.
My name is Sara Al-Musbahi. I'm a medical student at the Latin American School of Medicine, or Escuela Latinoamericana de Medicina, in Havana, Cuba. ELAM stands for Escuela Latinoamericana de Medicina. It's a project, a healthcare initiative established by Commander-in-Chief Fidel Castro upon values of internationalism and humanism, created in response to the immense need of nations victimized by political and socioeconomic instability and devastated by natural disasters. The mission is to build un ejército de batas blancas, an army of white coats, doctors of science and consciousness available to serve and empower communities around the world. Recognizing that similar conditions exist in many parts of our country, the Cuban government offered medical training free of charge to qualified students from underserved areas in the United States. As U.S. students in Cuba, we believe that equal access to quality, culturally competent, and sustainable healthcare is a human right, and we are inspired by what our comrades have been able to achieve under blockade with limited resources. As members of the U.S. delegation, we are committed to improving health outcomes in underserved communities back home upon graduation. The mass marches in support of the plight of the Palestinians and the rally at Universidad de La Habana have been eye-opening, standing alongside Palestinians we study with and the Cuban people that, despite living under a blockade, demonstrate integrity, solidarity, and heart in standing up for justice no matter the cost is humbling. Seeing the institutions and government officials support these events and actively participate was a breath of fresh air that I hope the lungs of our country will one day appreciate. Safety, peace, access to healthcare, education, food, drink, and other basic necessities are prerequisites for the development of any society. And as long as communities at home and abroad are barred from accessing these, there's work to be done. Our strength is in our unity. Divide and conquer is the imperialist way. They pit oppressed peoples against each other in an effort to puppeteer unscathed. So we must remain united and aware that we are interconnected. In the grand scheme of things, our struggle is one. Humanity as a collective is like one body. Oppression has spread like cancer. We must fight to identify it in its many forms, including manifestations within our own selves. We must continue to strive for justice. From Palestine to Cuba to Africa, Uhuru, hasta la victoria siempre.
Uhuru. Thank you, Sara. I know you weren't, you're not here, but your presence is felt, and very powerful statement, comrades. So just wanted to, salute and thank everybody from the Hands Off Cuba Committee, all of the speakers who have spoke before, before this segment, to just appreciate you, comrades, for being on, for giving your report back on this, really dynamic delegation, and just the understanding of the war and the genocide on Cuba, in Gaza, and around the world. So I see our comrades in St. Louis are back up again, and I'm gonna turn it to my co-MC, Comrade Chair Penny Hess. Uhuru. Oh, maybe you're frozen. Maybe I'm frozen. No, I'm not frozen. Okay. Uhuru, Penny, and it could be my having some issues with my connection earlier. Excuse me. So I'll just keep on moving. I'll move the agenda, but we do have a report coming up from the Leonard Peltier Ad Hoc Committee. And the reason why we, continue to have these comrades on, and why we think it's important to, as you heard many of those who made statements make the call to free Leonard Peltier, not one more year, is because just recently there was a parole hearing that took place on June 10th, just earlier this week, and we it was a huge show of support, of day of prayer, solidarity and support for Leonard Peltier, for for the committee, for his family, and the attorneys who were on the front line during this very long parole hearing, to make the last chance, really, for Leonard's freedom. And we have on this call, you're going to be able to hear from one of the attorneys. And then also there is an event that's coming up tomorrow. We want to invite everybody to attend for the Leonard Peltier Ad Hoc Committee. And if Comrade Dawn is still on, she will say, just a few quick words about how you can get to that event, and we'll make sure that you have that information. So in lieu of the comrades on the ground in St. Louis, okay, I see you're moving now. Okay.
Uhuru, we got frozen here. Wow, that was powerful. All of the reports from Cuba and all the comrades who went on that trip, that was very, very powerful to hear. Really want to salute them. And yes, it's always an honor to have the comrades who are fighting for the freedom and liberation of Comrade Leonard Peltier, who is an indigenous freedom fighter who has been in prison for nearly 50 years in this country. And we're going to be able to have a video from Jennifer Jones, who has been a very important part of the Hands Off Uhuru Fightback Coalition, and who is one of the two lead attorneys for Leonard. And there was a hearing just this past Monday. So we're going to hear from her, and then some updates on some upcoming events by the Leonard Peltier Ad Hoc Committee coming up from Comrade Dawn, who's going to fill us in on that.
Uhuru.
You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise. Uhuru, foremost, I want to thank Chairman Yeshitela and Chairpersons Odom, Hess, and Neville. We have no words for our appreciation of solidarity, love, and support shown by the Uhuru movement to Leonard and to ourselves. It is exemplary and shows the strength of unity and solidarity in movement. We stand in solidarity not only with your acquittal, but vindication in the face of your political prosecution. Leonard, of course, sends his gratitude. As you may know, we began this year with a triumphant motto coined by Brother Daruba bin Wahad: we will not give up the fight. Fight we will for Leonard's freedom. The struggle for Leonard's freedom is not over until it is over. We will use every available legal mechanism to secure his release, but we know the law and justice are not the same thing. And so the law alone is not sufficient to access meaningful justice. As such, we encourage continued legal support, but also social and political support for Leonard. Leonard had his parole hearing on Monday, June 10th, 2024, and we feel that he was as supported as possible. We are aware that the parole system itself, like every part of the criminal penal system, is both a political and legal process, and the flaws in this process, specifically concerning Leonard, have been meticulously documented by the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention. The appropriate inquiry for the Commission is to assess the person who is before them, not the alleged offense. Leonard's parole hearing lasted more than 7 hours. There was nothing unexpected about the hearing itself. The surviving loved ones of the agents killed on June 26, 1975, gave impact statements, as did representatives from the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of North Dakota. Dr. Renee Morrissey and organizer Nick Tilson, the only two witnesses permitted to testify on Leonard's behalf, spoke compellingly regarding Leonard's seriously deteriorating medical condition and the plans made to care for Leonard upon his release. Dr. Joel Morrissey particularly gave thorough testimony highlighting the ongoing long-term medical neglect to which Mr. Peltier is subjected. Related to the Maya Angelou quote that is often quoted, perhaps over-quoted, that I spoke of earlier, but still rings relevant and true today about our resilience as a people. But as Sister Warrior poet Audre Lorde said, our silence will not protect us. We were never meant to survive. Our legal team, likely a first in Leonard's case, was led and delivered almost entirely by marginalized and colonized lawyers, legal workers, advocates, and medical professionals, including the formerly incarcerated. Myself, attorney Maura Meltzer-Cohen, Dr. Giselle Diaz, Kalanji Jamachanga, Miss Lawson, Miss Lee, Dan Battaglia, Dr. Morrissey, and Dr. Ricardo Alvarez. Also, even the Water Protector Legal Collective, led by 3 Indigenous women who represent Leonard on separate matters, have played an instrumental role regarding his religious rights that should not be forgotten. We do not believe faces in high places makes a difference, only serving to be complicit in falsely underscoring and advancing the power of the state. I, as lead attorney, was present at the parole hearing. I devised the overall legal strategy and framing regarding Leonard's post-conviction relief, civil and human rights. For the past year, I have been working to ensure Leonard's medical care is both constitutionally sufficient and in accordance with human rights provisions. I also developed the constitutional analysis with respect to all aspects of Leonard's case. My esteemed co-counsel, attorney Maura Meltzer-Cohen, brilliantly developed and delivered the arguments to support Leonard's release. Attorney Meltzer-Cohen also in part developed and devised the legal framework for Leonard's parole. Unfortunately, Kevin Sharp was not permitted to deliver arguments to the hearing examiner nor present evidence during the hearing. Leonard was asked about the underlying offenses, but he also had the opportunity to speak about his grandchildren, and his personality and pride really shone through. A massive amount of material was presented, and we hope the hearing examiner has been convinced of the obvious fact that if released, Leonard is not in danger of violating the law, and that after 50 years, his release will not be seen as promoting disrespect for the law. We expect a decision within 21 days and are responsible for spearheading any necessary appeals and subsequent litigation, though we hope such action will not be necessary. We thank everyone who contributed to this process, including our families, our mentors, and shout out to Attorney Meltzer-Cohen students at CUNY School of Law, the National Conference of Black Lawyers, and the National Lawyers Guild, both organizations on which I serve as a board member. We also express sincere gratitude to the members of the NLG Mass Incarceration Committee Old Law Prisoner Project, Professor Chuck Weiselberg, Attorney Brad Thompson, Professor Audrey Bumpsey, Attorney Michael Kuzma, Dr. Joel Morrissey, Dr. Giselle Diaz, Kalanchi Jamachanga and Black Power Media, Celia Talvi, the Leonard Peltier Official Ad Hoc Committee, the Jericho Movement, and all those who have supported our work and advocacy. This work is part of a long tradition of liberation for all colonized people everywhere. When we fight, we win. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Thank you so much to Jennifer Jones, Attorney Jennifer Jones. And I wanted to bring up Comrade Dawn for a quick announcement of events that are coming up, I believe, including tomorrow. Yes, Uhuru, Comrade Dawn, thank you for coming on.
Uhuru, Comrade Penny. Uhuru, everyone. Jennifer stuns me every time she appears on camera. She is so gentle and so fierce at the same time. If anyone can get Leonard out, it will be her. We are having a webinar tomorrow. We are going to be screening Warrior, The Life of Leonard Peltier by Susie Bear. Susie Bear herself will be at the screening to discuss her relationship with Leonard, his family. She knows him extremely well. And we will have a surprise announcement. As Jennifer said, we appreciate your support. We hope for the best, but we are prepared to do battle. You know, people were talking about being able to write their own constitution. This government doesn't even adhere to its own constitution. And as Jennifer said, silence will not protect us. We have to be silent right now because we don't want to anger the wrong people, but that may change. And free Leonard Peltier, free him all, drop the charges. We need to take this country back and give it to the people it belongs to. Indigenous people, African American people.
Right on.
Uhuru, and
Thank
Dawn,
you.
could you put in the chat where people could sign up for the film showing
Absolutely.
tomorrow?
You can go to our website and click on events. Well, you go to news and click on events. The registration is free. There is a tiny URL that you taught me how to make, Penny. I will hunt that down in just a second.
Okay, yeah, just put that down in the chat. That would be very
Okay,
helpful.
I will grab it.
All
And
right.
our chat moderator is putting that in there as well.
much.
Great. Perfect.
Great. Yeah, I see that now.
Right on.
Uhuru,
Thank you, Dawn.
comrades. We
Yes.
will win. Free Leonard Peltier now.
Now one more year.
Uhuru.
I liked what Nancy said about this is not weakness, this is sadness. I talked to Leonard the last time I spoke here. They're torturing the man. They are literally torturing the man, and he insists on laughter. He's in pain. They're denying him medical care, but he still insists on laughter. Even if the decision is favorable, they could hang on to him for months. We have got to get him into a medical facility.
Yes.
Uhuru.
Yes. And we will get him out and, with his community, with his family, and that's the best, kind of healing that we can even achieve under this, parasitic system. So yes, without
It is
a
a
doubt.
parasitic system.
Yeah, yeah. And we are, and the host is rejecting the parasite, and parasite just can't handle it, and we're gonna just, yeah. We're gonna enjoy ourselves.
They're losing blood rapidly. Okay.
Yes, they are.
You can register. The tiny URL that Penny taught me how to make is in the chat.
Great, and I'll just read that out loud. That's tinyurl.com/Peltier Warrior, and that's to catch the screening of Warrior documentary by Susie Bear, and you can meet the comrades there. So again, that's tinyurl.com/Peltier Warrior. And thank you so much, Comrade Don, and also to thank everybody who is joining us. We have some new people that have, hopped on the call, and just, want to thank those who are sharing this out there. Go back and watch it. We're streaming live on YouTube, but we have a goal to raise $2,000 today, and we are coming up to our appeal, Chairwoman Penny. And I don't know if we're going to keep with how we're going on the program. So just let me know how we should move next. And otherwise, go ahead.
I think that we should go on. We should go with our appeal and have
Great.
Chairman O'Malley Shatella come back on to sum up, Chairman, if that's okay with you.
To close this out, yeah. Or
to close this out, yeah. Uhuru.
Okay, and we do have a Q&A. I haven't seen some of the questions that have been coming in. People have been answering and addressing them in the chat. So I just want to salute the community and everybody who's, addressing each other's questions in that area. There was one question on YouTube, and we'll follow up. This comrade is looking to see where they can connect with the Uhuru movement in New York and New Jersey. So we'll make sure that we get that to you, that information to you. This is who is watching on YouTube. So I unite. Let's go to the appeal. And I will turn it over to Comrade Jesse Neville, who is one of the Uhuru 3 and helping to chair the fundraising committee for the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Fund. Uhuru, Comrade.
Uhuru, Chairman Mwezi, Uhuru. Salute. Let's give a round of applause for this amazing event today.
Yes.
And I just want to salute Chairman O'Malley Shatella, salute the Hands Off Uhuru, Hands Off Africa, Fightback Coalition, Chairwoman Penny Hess, you, Chair Mwezi, and say free Palestine, victory to the Palestinian people, free Leonard Peltier, victory to the indigenous people, hands off Cuba, hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa. Uhuru. And now we're going to we're going to break our record from the last webinar in terms of the fastest appeal that we've ever done, because we are already so close, comrades. And I believe, okay, here's some slides. So you can go to handsoffuhuru.org/donate if you haven't already, and make your contribution. And even if you have already, go ahead and contribute again. Even if it's $5, $10, it all adds up to get us to our goal today of $2,000. And that goal is a part of a bigger goal that we have for what we're calling phase 2. And if you go to the next slide, I want to salute all of you who are participating in this webinar today, and all of you who form the broader Hands Off Uhuru anti-colonial free speech movement. Thousands of people have contributed to this campaign from the day it was launched on July 29th, 2022. And I actually was just looking earlier today at a video of the chairman speaking that night at the Uhuru Solidarity Center. The chairman went live and made a presentation. It's actually in the clip that we always show, where the chairman's saying they attacked the party because, like Malcolm and like Garvey, it brought African liberation around the world. In that same presentation, the chairman said that the party was under attack because the African People's Socialist Party stands with Palestine, stands with the people of occupied Palestine, because it stands with the people of Cuba, because it stands with the people of Nicaragua and Venezuela and all oppressed and colonized peoples around the world. Those were the words of Chairman O'Malley Shatella on July 29th, just hours after he had been zip-tied with assault rifles pointed at him and Deputy Chair Ona Zanea Shatella in their home during these notorious FBI raids. So that was the spirit of the counteroffensive that was launched on that day. And since then, thousands of people contributed to get us beyond phase 1 to raise $277,500 towards phase 1. And, it's such a strange number. And it's because we calculated the actual anticipated costs of retaining legal representation for those who were being targeted that we knew of by this bogus US government assault on the African liberation movement. So that's how we were able to create and assemble such a powerful legal team. It's your legal team. You made it happen. Our supporters, the comrades who form up this movement, you made that happen. So now we're going into phase 2. Phase 2, we need to raise $100,000 from now until September 3rd, when we go to trial to put the US government on trial, to put the FBI on trial, and win this victory for the Uhuru movement, the Uhuru 3, and for the anti-colonial struggle around the world. $100,000 is not that much, really, in terms of what this could potentially cost. So we know we're going to have to continue raising resources, but this includes things like hiring expert witnesses. We need to have the ability to do that, and that costs money. Hiring investigators to find out things that we need to know to mount what one of our attorneys called the most bulletproof defense in the courtroom possible. Court transcripts. Every single day, we want to get transcripts of what happened in the courtroom that day so that our lawyers have access to that in preparing for the next day and the next week. Other kinds of trial expenses that will be needed, including housing and travel. We're talking about a month-long trial that they're planning to have, plus political and organizational expenses. We want to go in strong to Tampa, Florida in September, starting with a massive march and rally on August 31st. So this is going to take resources, and we want to thank everybody who has contributed. And I just want to say, we are already $20,000 of the way into phase 2. So only $80,000 left to go. And we've had comrades pledge about another $10,000 on top of that. People who have contributed, who've said, I'll do $1,000. So if we had 70 more people pledge $1,000, we will be at our goal of $100,000. So I just want to quickly thank Dawn, Evelyn, Cesar, Maureen, MQ, Kat, Chairwoman Penny, Chair Mwezi, Karen, Ruby, Musa, Allison, Janet, Normadine, Sheila, Shakura, I can't see the last name on there. There's somebody. Danny, all of you who have contributed to our goal today. Our goal is $2,000 and we are $1,200 of the way there. Wow. So we only need 800 left to go. Go to handsoffforhuru.org/donate. And I think we have one more slide. And you can also make checks out to Hands Off Uhuru and send that to the Uhuru Solidarity Center, 2654 Gravois Ave in St. Louis, Missouri. So I'm very confident that by the time this webinar is over, we will have achieved our goal. I'm going to put in another $50, and I want to call on people to match me so we can get this up to $2,000 today. That means we are only $750 away. Go to handsoffforhuru.org/donate, fund the fight back, fund the Hands Off Uhuru anti-colonial free speech movement, put the state on trial, drop the charges on the Uhuru 3. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Uhuru, comrade, thank you for that very winning appeal, and to really give the breakdown of why we have these strange numbers, why we have to raise these resources, and really want to salute the legal defense team and everybody who donated to today's program. It's very inspiring. Those of you who have given, more than once, and those for the first time, and from the $1 donations to the, thousands of dollars of donations, it really does mean so much, comrades. So I just don't want to understate that and say thank you. And yes, please continue to help us meet our goal. And as we are closing out the announcements, we're going to give some more announcements about the march and rally that will be taking place on August 31st, as well as reminding everybody, if you have not already on this call, please go to handsoffforhuru.org/trial and fill out the form to attend the trial in September. And again, we're calling on people to come that weekend before for the march and rally. I see another $25 pledge in the chat from Bakari. I want to salute Bakari. Thank you so much. Let's keep it going. And I'm going to turn it over to the comrades on the ground in St. Louis, where we have the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, leader of the Uhuru movement, and leader of the anti-colonial struggle. Really want to salute you, Chairman, and I'll turn it over to you. Uhuru.
Uhuru. I want to thank you, Comrade Secretary General Mwezi, for the leadership that you provided in this Hands Off Uhuru Committee, and a special appreciation to all of your comrades who've come on and shared your time with us and shared your unity with the struggle that we're involved in. And I really want to express appreciation to Comrades Jesse Neville and Penny Hess, who involved and members and leaders of the solidarity movement that the African People's Socialist Party initiated in 1976, I think it was. And part of this was to open up a new front of struggle by African people in this country. At the same time, we were under fierce, murderous assault by the United States government to crush the anti-colonial movement that we were leading and were a part of as African people in this country. This was after the murder of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. This was after the scores, at least more than a score of Black Panther Party members who were assassinated in this country during this time frame. This was after the murder of Patrice Lumumba and Kwame Nkrumah on the continent of Africa, and the capture, the wounding, capture, and assassination of Che Guevara in 1967 of October in Bolivia. I want to say that this participation by Penny and Jesse in the creation of the Solidarity Movement was our work to break out of this encirclement that had been imposed on the struggle against colonialism that we were involved in inside this country. And that too often was participated in this encirclement by sectors of the settler left. As I say, settler colonizers in this country too often united, most often united either directly or indirectly with the murder that was being waged against African people fighting against colonialism in this country. That was a problem we had, and who would move to set terms for what it was that African people should be involved in, became ideological imperialists, if you will. But Comrades Penny, and then among others, and Comrade Jesse became those forces who helped us to break out of this encirclement and helped us to open up a new front of the struggle. And that front was among the settlers themselves. That was in their neighborhoods, and that was in their homes and among their families and what have you. And so they united with the struggle against colonialism. And they did it under the leadership of me and the African People's Socialist Party. So that the strategic struggle that we were involved in, recognizing that the fundamental question that the world has been confronted with for a very long time is the colonial question. And recognizing that the work we did as the African People's Socialist Party, when I initiated the unity with the struggle that was happening in Nicaragua, and as pulling together these forces there in Northern California, organizing the first mass response to that outside of the Nicaraguan community itself. When I went to Ireland during the same general time frame to unite with the Irish people who were struggling against colonialism there, and got the support from the Irish Republican Socialist Party for the struggle that we were making for reparations, and the struggle we were making to try to get the United States to unite with the UN Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, something that took them 40 years to do. When I went to these various places and traveled throughout Europe, where I was there in Germany when the Green Party was first brought into the parliament in Germany, not necessarily to our benefit, but I was there. And I was there as a part of the process of solidarity, winning unity of the peoples who were experiencing colonial domination, who were trying to break out of this colonial mode of production. We did this work not out of charity. We worked and turned all the resources we had over to the Nicaraguan revolution, all of them. We helped to raise resources to deal with mountain sickness that people who were struggling against the Somoza regime that had been established by the United States government, and that had been where the Cuban Revolution played such a fundamental role in helping that revolution in Nicaragua come into existence. We did it out of solidarity. We actually went to Nicaragua. We actually sent cadre to Nicaragua to work on the Atlantic coast among the English-speaking Africans and others there who had not been brought effectively into the Nicaraguan revolution because of the history of repression and splitting up the Nicaraguan people, the Africans, from the Spanish-speaking, English-speaking Africans, and what they characterize as Mosquito Indians from the Spanish-speaking people of Nicaragua. that this split, this incredible oppression that kept that from happening, because they asked us for advice. How do we take this question on? And we actually sent a cadre there who worked in the Atlantic coast and who helped to write the law that would bring us an aspect of self-determination to the Atlantic coast. We were there, and we did these things and other things, not out of charity. It wasn't charitable work. Our relationship with our incredibly solid comrades from Union de Barrio and the Mexican people. I was also at Big Mountain when the U.S. government had, after they had discovered uranium there, and the United States government was initiating a new assault against the Diné and Hopi people there, so-called Navajo people there. We were there. And we were there for the purpose of standing with the Diné people to defend those resources, etc. We have had this unity not because of charity. We were there because we had come to understand that we were not fighting a lot of colonialism. There was one colonial mode of production. In fact, that the world had become connected together as a consequence initially of the attack on Africa by Portugal in something like 1415. And that from that point on, the dispersal of African people against their will into Cuba, places that we know as Cuba, in throughout the Americas, and through this place that I'm located in now called the United States, that this was a part of the process that established a world economy for the first time in history. And this world economy was colonialism. And this world economy was characterized by Karl Marx as the primitive accumulation of capital. That accumulation of capital that did not have as consequence capitalist production, but was the starting point. It was where everything got started. It is upon this foundation that the capitalist system rests. And that's one of the reasons it's so important that Comrades Penny and Comrade Jesse are here, because we are breaking out of this encirclement, and we are helping also the North American and the settlers here to join in the struggle to overturn this kind of relationship of parasitism that now envelops the entire earth. And that's why you see most of the fundamental contradictions that we see happening throughout the world. They are happening in Palestine. They are happening in St. Louis, in the north side of St. Louis. They are happening where various peoples are against the people in Cuba, etc. And because we recognize that this is a colonial mode of production and not just a lot of colonialism we're fighting, it gives us the ability through processes such as what we're engaged in right now to be able to develop the kinds of strategic process that will make real in a much broader and deeper and fundamental way strategic process where Che Guevara called for 2-3 mini Vietnams. What we are saying is we have the ability to have 2-3 mini struggles against colonialism, 2-3 mini struggles against the setup that has imposed on all of us against the colonial mode of production. So I'm hoping everybody here will do everything possible, do everything that we're capable of doing. We're talking about having a long, hot summer between now and September 3rd when the trial is supposed to happen. When I say long, hot summer, I want to remind everybody that what we experienced, for example, in the United States, just from the period of 1965 and 68, when the anti-colonial revolution had inflamed the imagination and the passions and the strategies of most of the oppressed peoples around the world. In the United States, there was something like 329 urban rebellions in 257 cities with 60,000 arrests and millions of dollars in terms of property damage. The point is that the masses of people understood that the question was colonialism, and we are part of that process. And one of the reasons that we are attacked is because this process you're talking about is not a process of some inert people who are simply saying we are being victimized and harmed by the United States, but we're saying that we are being victimized, we are being attacked because there's a crisis with the colonial mode of production where the peoples of the world are fighting back, where the internal rot of this social system is making itself manifest, with a former president being convicted of of 34 felonies, where we have a situation where more felonies trials are down the road, where the son of a president has been convicted, and where the existing president is facing the problem of their smoke being associated close to him, and with the probability of fire somewhere being associated in criminal behavior that for him. This is what we're looking at. And even the question of whether there's going to be an election in 2024 in terms of presidency, these are things that's up in the air. There's a fundamental, profound crisis, and it affects everything in the world. And that's something that we recognize, and we are part of the struggle to free. We say free the Uhuru Three. We want that to happen, but freeing the Uhuru Three must be a part of the struggle for the emancipation of all humanity from an inhumane social system that has been imposed on us by a colonial mode of production. Uhuru.
Uhuru! Uhuru! Thank you so much, Chairman. Uhuru, go ahead.
Go ahead, Comrade. You're right there.
No,
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank you so much, Chairman, for that. And I just wanted to say that that we cannot let the state lift a finger against Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And in the process of dropping the charges against Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Jesse and myself were part of the attack on the chairman, because we are an organization of white people under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, that we must free Leonard Peltier,
Yes.
we must free Mumia, we must free
them all.
African people. Yes, Uhuru. And I want to thank Comrade Kitty, by the way, who put in $333 today. Wow. And Comrade Peg, who put in $250. So,
Uhuru.
and I just want to say one more thing, if I could, and I'll be finished. That the chairman talked about all out for the trial September 3rd, but there's going to be a mobilization on August 31st, the Saturday prior to the beginning of the trial, of this bogus trial. We've already gotten commitments from Unión del Barrio, Hands Off Cuba, and the Leonard Peltier Ad Hoc Committee that are saying they will be there. They will be there in Tampa. And we know that this is going to be a historical event. And this will be a victory for all oppressed and colonized peoples around the world. But we're saying you must be there. Everybody must be there. This is the place that we have to be, because we want to bring together 1,000 people that are out there that can't fit in the courtroom, that makes the judge say, oh, this trial is dropped. You know, the charges will be dropped. And it's going to be a historic and incredibly important victory for African people and for oppressed and colonized peoples around the world. And I'm just saying, we are going to be out there. Everybody has to be there. And also, if you or your organization can make the commitment to be there in Tampa on August 31st, please put that in the chat as well. And we're going to continue to be putting this out. We want hundreds and hundreds of organizations and hundreds of individuals to stand with Chairman Omali Yeshitela, hands off the Uhuru Three, and stand with the oppressed and colonized peoples of the world. Venceremos, Uhuru.
Uhuru, I just wanted to say that when we talk about the long hot summer, we're saying that between now and that trial, that we intend to be doing all kinds of political work to raising these contradictions. We say that this whole social system will fold under the weight of the contradictions that exist, but we have to expose those contradictions. And what they will attempt to do with this trial, they will try to limit what we can say in the courtroom. They will try to negate our ability to say the history of the United States government in terms of the attack and the war on Black people. They will try to say that they don't want to regard or pay attention to the fact that in 1982, we held the first tribunal on reparations for Black people in this country and in the world, and where we used international law, including the crime of genocide, the Genocide Convention, that they now say the Russians somehow created for us to do most recently. And this was something before the person who they claim I was working for in Russia was even born. So this is the kind of thing that we have to elevate this and let the people see it. We have to break out of this embargo that the ruling class media have imposed upon us, and we intend. But for the duration, for the entirety of that trial, every week there's going to be actions outside the courtroom. Every weekend there are going to be rallies, and there are going to be conferences where we're going to talk about Cuba. We're going to talk about Palestine. We're going to talk about Puerto Rico. We're going to talk about what's happening to African people. We're going to do this and have mobilizations and marches on a regular basis. That is to say, we want to reinvigorate the anti-colonial struggle that they thought they crushed in 1960 something, and now they have to understand that one got away. And that's exactly what it is that we want to bring, and hoping that you can come there, bring everything that you have. Let's be there. Let's build a movement. Let's not just be satisfied with freeing Umali Shetela and Uhuru III. Let's recognize that the struggle to free Umali Shetela and Uhuru III has to be seen as a part of the struggle against colonialism and the colonial mode of production, and all colonized people and everybody who recognize to be the ability to be united against colonialism have to play a conscious role in this process. We can win. Uhuru.
Yes. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman. Yes, so powerful. Long, hot summer, and it starts today. It has already started, and as we understand that this is as the chairman said, this is as you said, Chairman, from the embers, from the ashes of the 1960s.
Yes.
They thought they crushed this revolution through this counterinsurgency, but we are still here. We are winning. We will win. And yes, forward towards victory. All the liberation struggles, we will be free in our lifetime, in your lifetime, Chairman. So I just want to say that we are $77 away from our goal. So I do want to just thank just a few more of our donors. I want to appreciate, let me see here, Comrade MQ, again, who is making contribution towards their $1,000 pledge. They contributed 40 to today. Thank you, MQ, as well as Maureen for your $25 donation. Thank you, Comrade Maureen. And I see another donation coming in from Miguel. I don't have the amount just yet, but that's $44 I see from Miguel, right on. Thank you so much, Miguel. So that takes us to $33 left to our goal. And I want to appreciate those who have, made contributions towards their $1,000 pledge, chopping away at that. And I see a $33 from Amanda. There we go. We did. Uhuru, comrade. Yes, we did it. Uhuru. So we met our goal, comrades. Really want to salute everybody for that profound just stance of solidarity. You're being here, you're putting this out in the world, all of this matters. And I wanted to just say a few more organizations who have committed to come to the trial. And again, you go to handsoffuhuru.org/trial. We want to appreciate Sister Belinda Parker Brown, members of the Black is Back Coalition, Betty Davis, also the Bethesda African Cemetery Coalition, Marcia Coleman Adebayo says, I will be there. Also some members in St. Louis of the Green Party in St. Louis, as well as the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee as well. So these are some organizations that have committed to being there, and there's many more on that list. And we want to invite you all.
CPI as well.
Yes, CPI, the Center for Innovation.
Caleb.
Yes, Caleb and John McCarthy, the whole team. We want to really
Black Men Bill. Black Men Bill.
Black Men Build, Uhuru, yes.
Virginia Defenders.
Yeah.
Virginia Defenders, yes. Phil Odessa, we're going to really salute
Freedom
Phil
Road.
Freedom Road Social Organization.
Right.
Get your organization to Tampa on the 31st for this march. We're going to pull up some, there is one question, and I know we really have to wrap it up, comrades. So I want to just, if we can just address the one question that came in that I did happen to see. If there's others, I'm self-critical. We won't be able to get to those on today, but we'll keep them for the future. And then we'll just go through our announcements. But salute to everyone. We met our goal. Now let's get to trial. We have one question here from Comrade Kumba. Kumba asks, he says, what does it mean to organize and fight systemic change? Comrade Kumba is watching on YouTube. And this is for the panelists overall. But the question is, what does it mean to organize and fight for systemic change? I know, yeah, I'll just leave that open, and then we will go to our announcements. And yeah, Uhuru, I'll stop talking.
You are a panelist.
Oh.
You're the main panelist that we're talking about.
Well, I thank you, Comrade Kumba, for raising that. Because what the United States government succeeded, and not just the U.S. inside this country, but what happened around the world with the murderous assault and defeat of much of the anti-colonial revolutionary movement. I remind people, I'm talking about colonialism here. I'm talking about what we saw in the 1950s in Bandung, Indonesia, when people from colonized people from all around the world came together to oppose colonialism. I'm talking about what happened in Cuba, in Havana in 1966, where the Tricontinental Conference came together to talk about how to defeat colonialism. The fact is that there was a global movement of people who had come to understand the question of colonialism, and then we are part of that. And the U.S. government and the imperial powers collectively served to crush that and somehow and kill leaders and put revolutionary forces like Cuba under a massive assault. They corrupted many of our leaders and things like that. So what does it mean? It means that we have to move beyond this place that they have locked us into with opportunists. Well, the only thing that we can do is try to find a place of refuge inside the colonial system itself. We have to move and attempt to help others recognize the need to overturn colonialism altogether. We have to build movements to destroy colonialism. We have to build movements that presupposes the responsibility of the colonized working class to become the new ruling class. That is to say, overturn a system resting upon a platform of colonial domination of the peoples of the world. That's the only way we'll ever be able to move forward, and we have to have the courage to do it. We have to have the courage to do it despite the fact that the colonizer controls the law, but colonialism itself is illegitimate. And so we have to have the courage to do it, because if we back up every time, if we just simply say free Omali Shetela and the Uhuru 3, without recognizing that we're up against a whole social system, even if we succeed in freeing Omali Shetela and the Uhuru 3, we will have done a huge disservice to the struggle against colonialism. And I just want to say that Nat Turner was put on trial, I think in something like 1831, for leading a revolutionary struggle to overturn the enslavement of African people in this country. And he was put on trial and he was found guilty at the trial. But if he had not been found guilty, if it's possible to imagine him being found innocent, he still would not have been free, because the enslavement of African people still would have prevailed. And we're not looking for this system to continue to prevail. We have to keep our focus on a to what end. And that to what end is the collective effort by all of us who hate this kind of oppression, exploitation that the world is, hate the ongoing wars and threats of war, hate the destruction of the environment. All of us who believe that the people have a right to benefit from our own resources, our own labor, that our children and all the children have a right to see a future. All of us, we have to unite in the struggle to overturn this kind of social system, build a new world. That's what we're engaged in doing. And so, Comrade Kumba, I know that was a long-winded response, but that's what it's going to take to organize, to do that, and to unite, to do it in unity. And you don't even have to be in Palestine to support the Palestinian struggle. We recognize this one struggle. We have an obligation here. We figure out what the hell we can do where we are located to facilitate. When the Nicaraguan revolution broke out, we didn't have many resources, but what we had, we turned it over to the Nicaraguan revolution, to the Nicaraguan struggle. That's our responsibility. That's the responsibility of all of us who are here, is to give whatever we can, and especially when we see a sharp rupture begins to occur in the colonial mode of production like Palestine, we do what we can. Free Palestine from the river to the sea. And I just want to say that. And like I said, I know it's a long-winded response, comrade, but the point is that we have to go for broke. We cannot continue to simply to be satisfied with trying to find a better seat on a sinking ship. Uhuru.
There you go. Thank you, Chairman. That's it. Thank you, Comrade Kumba, for your question and your participation as always, Comrade. And yeah, so go for broke. Let's win this thing. Just wanted to say, I think we should move to our announcements now. I know some of our panelists did have to leave us at this point, but we just really want to salute those really profound presentations from Comrade Nancy Mansour of Existence is Resistance. Also want to salute our really profound panel of delegates from the U.S. Hands Off Cuba Committee delegation, as well as statements from comrades from Unión del Barrio, Ron Goches, as well as comrades from the Leonard Peltier Ad Hoc Committee and the Uhuru 3, Chairman Amalia Shatella, Penny Hess, and Jesse Neville. So I'm going to take us through our announcements very quickly, comrades, and please just come back to this to get the links for all announcements and updates. You can go to handsoffuhuru.org/events. This is constantly being updated. More will be updated today with some of the events that I will mention. But we want to encourage you to go there. This is how you can sign up for all upcoming events and even some of the ones that you've heard from our panelists. We will be at these places too, so we'll make sure that these are also up as well. We want to remind everybody about the struggle for Sister Lisa Davis, who is in South Orange. This is a comrade who is the vice chair of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations, always on the front lines, always out there on the ground. And this comrade is facing, charges for participating in a pro-Palestine protest. There is a call to action. This is Sunday, June 16th in the afternoon, 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern time. Those of you who are on the ground in South Orange, New Jersey, you can be there at the town hall. So we'll make sure this information is on Hands Off Uhuru website as well. And as the chairman has said, as we had made the call all out to trial, handsoffuhuru.org/trial. Get there right now. Let us know that you will be there and plan to be on the ground in St. Pete as part of the long, hot summer for the Not One Step Backwards March and Rally on Saturday, August 31st, beginning at 11 a.m. Oh, next slide. In St. Petersburg, Florida, meeting up at the Uhuru House. You can find out more information and sign up at handsoffuhuru.org/march. And you can also endorse this march, and I'll make sure that information is also in the chat. So thank you so much, everyone. If you are tuning in on Zoom or in other places, you can find this on the Burning Spear YouTube. But for now, we will say hands off Cuba, free Palestine. Drop the charges on the Uhuru 3. Victory to all, not one step backwards. Uhuru. Uhuru.
Tenemos una marcha para defender a nuestros derechos y también para apoyar Palestina, que es mi país.
Una vez más, aquí salimos en las calles de La Habana, lanzamos nuestras voces junto con nuestros hermanos cubanos.
Somos estudiantes palestinos que estudiamos aquí y a nosotros agradecemos mucho lo que está haciendo Cuba ahora para nosotros, para mi pueblo.
Aunque hay mucha distancia, que estamos casi en otro mundo en Cuba, pero siempre vamos a estar como una mano en contra de lo que está pasando en Palestina.
Israel quería eliminar el nombre de Palestina de todo el mundo, pero ahora todo el mundo grita en el nombre de Palestina.
¡Que viva la lucha del pueblo palestino!
2/3 de los muertos son niños
o mujeres.
Todo esto es un genocidio, que no es una guerra.
Este problema no empezó en el 7 de octubre, sino empezó hace muchos años, hace 75 años.
No mostraba al mundo por los medios la realidad. ¿Por qué? Porque quieren que el mundo quede en silencio.
Están tratando de exterminar al pueblo palestino, pero desde aquí le estamos diciendo que Palestina seguirá defendiéndose, Palestina seguirá existiendo.
Nuestra lucha es unida. Nuestra lucha